Good afternoon and welcome to ISD 709. This is our monthly Committee of the Whole meeting. It is June 13th. It's a Thursday. It's a little bit different than our regularly first Tuesday of the month. But due to our graduation week last week, which was phenomenal, and we were so glad to be invited and to be present at those celebratory occasions, it necessitated us moving some of our scheduled meetings. So we had our HR business on Tuesday, which usually doesn't happen until after this meeting, but now we had it on Tuesday too. But again, this is ISD 709. It is our Committee of the Whole meeting. This is a meeting that we as a board are here to listen to presentations, ask questions, hear from things that are happening in our district that are celebratory, or things that are happening in our district that are, things that will come up in our board meetings where we're going to take a vote or an action. I think of many of things today that we're going to talk about at our Committee of the Whole. We will actually then bring to a vote next Tuesday, and it is our opportunity, after looking at all of the agenda items, to come here asking questions, come here ready to, put more into context than what we've got in PowerPoints, and then listen to all of you that will come and share. So we're glad you're here. And again, then I'll turn it to Clerk Zadowski, who will take roll.
Member Banks?
Here.
Member Dirk Eater?
Present.
Member Lafleur-Kemp?
Here.
Member Lofald?
Here.
Member Mikesell?
Here.
I am here. And Member Williams?
Here.
Superintendent Magus?
Present.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds?
Present.
Deputy Clerk Zunich?
Present.
And let's see, Executive Assistant Brown? Perfect.
Thank you. And so again, we have had our board agenda, and it's a little bit less of a formal meeting because there isn't any approval of the agenda. There is no, formal pledge of allegiance. Then I turn it right over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds, who has created the incredible information we're going to hear today. So again, welcome to our presenters, welcome to our community. We do live broadcast this, and we also put it on our YouTube site for those interested to listen to it that can attend in person. So again, thank you, Assistant Superintendent Bonds, for what I think is going to be an incredible evening of fun.
Absolutely. Definitely fun. So good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chair Lofo. So we do have a robust agenda ahead of us. So we're going to start right away. So I'm going to ask Executive Director Zunich if she's going to join the table with our presenters from the Voyager Bus Company. So if they can come to the table, and when you come, please turn on your mic when you come to the table. Simone, can you get a little insight on the nature of the presentation?
I sure will. Good evening. Closer. Okay. Good evening. I'm very excited tonight to invite Jeremy Casapitas, our transportation manager for ISD 709, and then the Voyager team, who between Jeremy and all these other gentlemen, they make all of our transportation happen. So we have Mr. Mike Croyce here, who will speak to you. We have Tom Severson, and we have Joe Croyce here as well. And I think, Mike, I'll let you speak. He knows some of you, and I think I wanted to introduce the team also to our new board members.
So I'll give you a brief history lesson. I started for the Duluth Public Schools transporting in 1971. So I just finished this is my 53rd school year that I finished. It's kind of ironic that I can remember being up here when Central High School was brand new in the fall of the year when I started, and how it's gone full cycle into administration building. I don't have to crawl up those stairways anymore. We started to transport, we were, back in 1971, Duluth incorporated the rural area, Lakewood, Gunnison, in that area. They consolidated into Duluth. If a school district was not K through 12, the people had to vote where to come to. So most of the people voted to come to Duluth. It was also the year for parochial non-public school that the state paid for that. So we were brought up primarily, we started out in the country. We transported, we started with about 20 buses. It's kind of interesting. It still takes about 14, 15 buses to cover the country. You run out of time versus you run out of space on the bus. Two farthest routes in the whole district is Island Lake and Pequon. Both of them start about 6 o'clock in the morning. When I started a bus, my first fleet of buses I bought from Ryland Ford, it cost $12,000. You're staring at a brand new bus today is $130,000. That's how much it changed. Back when I got my school bus license, it was called the chauffeur's license. I took my school bus license in a '57 Chevrolet. Now, to get your school bus license, which adds to not having enough people, it's just about a 4-year college degree. You do the background checks, you do everything. They've got it so complicated that a lot of people just get frustrated in that, and that's why the shortages. The world since COVID, the world changed at COVID. You know, you people know that our world changed, and I never forgotten all of the years that I've transported who my employer was. I had opportunities to go to other districts and serve them, but I always stayed loyal to Duluth. And I'm pretty proud of that. And then there was one of my old superintendents, Mark Miles, and he always told me, he used to shift the starting times around, and I know next year we'll adjust it a little bit. And Mark always told me, he says, you got the same number of kids. We're just moving the time a little bit. You figure it out. And then you hang up the phone. So whatever he told you to do, that's kind of what you did. You just move things around. So it's been a challenging 50-some years, but I'm proud. I appreciate you asking for us to come here today. So I'll
just do a quick introduction. Tom Severson, I'm Chief Operating Officer for the Minnesota Coaches Group of Companies, which includes the Voyager Bus Company, and then we have companies down in the Twin Cities and over in Fergus Falls and all the way down to the La Crosse location. I've kind of come full circle in my career. I actually started for Mike Croyce in 1983 when I got my CDL school bus license while I was attending school up here. Ended up going full-time with Mike, and then moved my family in 1991 down to the cities, and from there stayed in the operations side, worked in our corporate world for a little while, and got back in operations because that's where my heart is. The full circle in the last couple of years have been basically support for the Voyager Bus Company location from an operations and human resources standpoint. And I'm a second generation employee in the bus business under the same group of ownership. And now I've introduced the third generation. My son is also now a full-time employee working there at Voyager Bus Company, helping to support the 709 contract. And it's a very family-oriented company. It's who we are, and a lot of why we're as successful as we are with these long-term contracts, which is what we're always looking for. And we're very, very appreciative for the contract here at 709 and the partnership that we have with this entire school district, with the Simones and Jeremys and the entire school district here. It's been a wonderful 53 years.
Superintendent Magus?
Well, I'll wait till the end, sorry. I was just so excited to praise the partnership, I pressed my button.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Croyce, and I am the General Manager for Voyager Bus Company and Minnesota Coaches out of Duluth here. I'm 44 years old. I drove my first school bus when I was 6, in the lot, not on the road. Got my CDL when I was 18 and started driving, and I guess you could say it was I was born with a steering wheel in my hand. I spent a number of years within the company in various capacities, and eventually landed on our motor coach side and grew the motor coach business, and about 5 years ago made the transition over to the operations and the school bus side with the company as a whole. And I can also speak to the partnership that Voyager's had along with ISD 709 over the years, and of the working relationship and partnerships we have. This is a very strong partnership, and at the end of the day, I always feel like we can talk our way through any issue that we have and come to a resolution on it. And our job at the end of the day is to deliver students safely to and from school. And every day we look at it as we're hauling the world's most precious cargo. Pretty much all of us are parents in here, I would assume, and my children ride the bus just like everybody else's children do every single day. And we always keep that in mind when we look at an employee. We always ask ourselves, would you trust that individual with your children? And it's a question that gets asked on a daily basis with multiple people, and the answer is yes. So again, I want to thank everybody for inviting us here tonight and for the partnership and how much we cherish this contract.
I'm Jeremy Caspitas, the transportation manager. I started with the district in 22. Matter of fact, it was 2/22 of 22. Started as a mechanic. I grew up in the shop, so within a year, things changed. I took on the assistant supervisor position, and then a couple months later, ended up being the transportation manager. Never thought I'd be working for the school district. It's kind of nice, though. It's a good place to work. Met a lot of good people, and it's been a good partnership with Voyager so far. They've been great helping us out, getting kids to school. We have problems, they're there to help every single time. So I really appreciate what they've done, so.
Okay, thank you all very much. We have timed this as well. We went out for bids for, our contract was up. School bus contracts generally go for 10 years. We can come back every 2 years in case, to make some adjustments. If not, if fuel changes, prices have changed. So this will be good now for a while, for 10 years. And it was on the HR Business Services agenda on Tuesday night, and it will be coming to you on Tuesday, the 18th, under the consent agenda. So I too want to thank everybody here. We had a year. We started out the school year with some challenges, new software. We have done four-hour process mappings that have been incredible. Voyager has been there at the table with us. And we meet weekly, and we have really worked hard on improving our systems. Tomorrow, we're going to meet and discuss sending out a letter to families, just saying, hey, you've had transportation this year, and the expectation is you'll have it next year. Just a friendly letter out to families. And we will be fine-tuning that tomorrow with Jeremy and Adele. And I just want to, I can call them at any time. They pick up every time. And like Joe said, no problem has been too great, and also been very responsive to the assistant superintendent and the superintendent. So I'll finish.
Thank you. Superintendent?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for the partnership. I think that transporting our students is transporting the most precious cargo we have. And my dad was a bus driver, and if I was a better driver, I probably would have helped bus drive during the pandemic, but I think I was better off in other categories. But I just want to say how much we appreciate this long-standing partnership. It means a lot to us, and I think about all the times that we've had 3 a.m. calls on whether or not we were going to run school, or conversations about how to get a bus down a little road to turn around and pick people up. And we've just really had a lot of close collaboration. And I think having trusted partners like this is incredibly important to us when we think about our contracted services. We always look at being thoughtful and careful stewards of our resources, and I feel very confident that this is a solid choice for us.
Chair Lawful?
So I just want to appreciate the fact that our district leader, Simone, felt connected enough to bring you in. I don't know if this is done in other districts, and I actually, if it is, great. If it's not, we want to. But I've always understood bus transportation in a way, but to have you guys come today and tell us that you transport the most precious cargo, to share with us how much you've appreciated the partnership you've had with the district is incredible. Just as and this has have nothing to do with like being a school board member. It's just that, oh my gosh, I really appreciate the ability and the commitment you made to come and share this with us. And so I just want to, applaud that. I just looked at it at a different way. And I'm sorry that I haven't looked at it that way my whole years, because I've known Mike for a long time as a district employee and a speech coach for 39 years in our district. Like Mike said earlier, I've ridden a lot of, and I'm pretty sure I know this, but I could be wrong, is that our Voyager partnership carries most of our extracurricular activities. So I know that on my Saturday 5 a.m. pickup, my Voyager bus, or my mini coach bus sometimes, or my Minnesota coach bus is going to be there. And actually, I had an event this season where I thought I requested the bus and it wasn't there, but East's Voyager bus was there, so they swung by and picked us up because your contact picked up the phone right away at 10 to 5, and we were able to make that adjustment. And then we sent another Voyager bus to pick us up because I didn't want to impede on East's team, because they're a big team too. And so, but again, I just really appreciate hearing from you and just seeing you and knowing that a 10-year contract is in the best interest of our district, and that we appreciate the thanks that you bring to us for obviously your love of working for ISD 709 as well. So thank you. Pretty special.
Member Banks, then Member Laflacamp.
Thank you very much. I have a question as it relates to the 14 or 15 buses you alluded to accommodate students from the outlying areas to ISD 709. Can you share with us how many students does that equate to, and how does that impact our transportation budget in ISD 709? So what I'm asking is, how much is that costing per student that you are transporting into the district?
Joe, and Jeremy, I don't know if we've got exact numbers as to how many we are actually transporting, but we could certainly, at some point, we could get those numbers for you and be able to articulate. Right now, we probably wouldn't be able to articulate and quantify exactly what that cost is, but we could certainly get that for the board and provide those numbers to you so that we know the numbers that we are bringing in and how many extra dollars that does cost the district.
All right.
And are you talking the students that are outside the entire Duluth attendance boundary, or the students that are just outside of their specific school boundary that you're looking at cost base?
So I'm thinking of the students that are coming from the townships and those areas. He alluded to 14 or 15 buses being used for that. So I would like to know what that cost is for that.
Yeah, and again, what everybody should realize is that Duluth Public Schools is one of the largest school district by geographic area that there is in the state. And so I think a lot of these townships and a lot of what has been going on for years here in Duluth, they are part of your enrollment. And so it is you have the obligation to get these kids to and from school. So yeah, we might need a little bit of specific of which ones we want to, make sure that we're including in that count. So, but we can work with Simone to get that and make sure that we're sharing that with you. Okay.
Member Laflacamp.
Great. Good question, Henry. I really appreciated, Mike, your history. I moved here 30 years ago from Minneapolis, and one of my first phone calls as a new kindergarten parent was to find out, how do you do your hiring? How do you transport my kids? And a lot of great questions, and I remember just feeling really grateful for what I learned as a new kindergarten parent, and then my 4 kids all rode the bus. I also appreciated your history on back in 1971 when the incorporation happened, because I'm a District 1 rep, so I represent all of the townships. I've door knocked the townships. I've heard from parents and grandparents the appreciation that we transport their kids to Ordine and Easton, where they mainly go because of the way the townships are in Duluth. It used to be Central too, but thank you for that little history. I'm going to share that. And I too just want to share the appreciation that other board member, Chair Lofold and Superintendent Magus made. I get through my work to meet some of your bus drivers, and I have had wonderful interactions, caring people with some of our most special needs kids often, but just great interactions. And so I appreciated the questions that you ask them when you're hiring them, and you're asking yourselves about who you're hiring. So just really thank you. I'll appreciate hearing that financial information too, but we do have an obligation. And I grew up in a rural community. The importance of that transportation for the families is so key. So thank you.
Member Derek Eater?
Sorry about that. I had a chance to, I'm chair of the HR Business Services Committee, so I had a chance to read through the contract, and it's great to think we won't have to possibly read through that contract again for another 10 years. So I want to compliment you on the partnership that we've had. There's been many times where Simone or Superintendent Magus have said how you've stepped in and leaned in and helped us when we've been short of drivers. I have 2 kids that go to Duluth Public Schools. One rides the bus from up Piedmont down to Denfeld. Last year, he did Piedmont to Lincoln Park, and I followed the buses down 27th on those really snowy days, and I want to compliment those drivers because they do a great job. As you know, as 27th gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and then they turn and take some of those other roads, so thank you for that. I also want to compliment you, Jeremy. It's been quite the 2 years since you've started. I always point out in the transportation report that we're looking for bus drivers, so I realize that everybody's short, and I want to compliment you and thank you truly as a parent of a kid who rides the bus and as a school board member. I don't worry about the busing because I know it's in very good hands, so thank you very much.
Member Meixel?
Yeah, I was wondering if someone could comment on just the busing responsibility between the district and Voyager, because that was something that was new that I learned as a school board member, and so our community might not necessarily know like how that's all delineated.
What specifically are you wondering?
I feel like I learned that Voyager covers a certain section of the city where school district bus drivers cover the remainder. Is that correct?
Before the district built their new facility up here, we did have it split a little bit east-west, where Voyager handled more of the east side and the rural country areas. We do have a smaller satellite terminal out off 59th Avenue West. When the district moved up here, we reshifted that a little bit to some of the schools that were closer to this office, being Myers Wilkins and Lowell. And then Voyager took over more of the Stowe, Lower MacArthur with our satellite terminal just for logistical purposes. At the beginning of the year, we get a Gantt sheet with the routes that Jeremy provides us, that everything's divided up and tells us which routes we're going to do and which routes they're going to do. And generally, we just talk about it beforehand, and if there's anything that needs to be flopped logistically, that's how we handle it. So then their response time is also better for bringing a bus from here or 3941 East Calvary Road all the way out to Stowe versus 59th Avenue South that can get there in 10 to 15 minutes. So we keep all that in mind too.
Yeah, a lot of logistics. Thank you.
So if you go back into there used to be 3 transportation systems in Duluth. My buses, the district buses, and the DTA. Number of years ago, the DTA, we divided the routes up between us and the school district. When the school district had their garage out in the west end, we kind of, it was kind of divided. And district would take Denfeld and Lincoln in the west schools, and we would take the east schools. But then when everything's kind of changed, then they just kind of intermingled where we are. And then, like last year when they moved up here, it was more efficient for us because we're on 59th Avenue West to go to Stowe than it is for the district to run out of here to go to Stowe. So we kind of swapped the Myers-Wilkins route and the Lowell routes because they're close to this terminal and that. So that's how it kind of evolved through the years. It was a fine line, but back in the old days, everything was a lot simpler. You know, the special ed, when I first came to Duluth, you could transport, the whole township was in one van and they went down to Jefferson. And now, you know, there was like a handful of kids, you could count them on one hand, and it's like today it's, you know, the EC4, EC5, and you know, the behavior that Northwoods and Rockridge and everything's kind of specialized, so.
Member Mike, so your mic is still on, or you have another question?
No,
Just
the-
make sure.
I have a follow-up after whoever else.
Okay, so I'll go with Member Sadowski, then Member Williams.
If you had a follow-up to this, why don't you ask? Because
Yeah,
mine was going to be different.
Yeah, just the follow-up to that logistical question, that conversation that you have, is that annual then? Like you figure out who, like every year you rediscuss that, or?
Yep.
Okay.
We have discussions every year on it because you have the kids that move up, so sometimes the changes, and especially on the sped side, because that's such a moving target, and with the fit and foster as well, that's in there too. You have a lot of logistical pieces, and sometimes it boils down to who can cover that. You know, if you have a driver that can cover it, great. If not, I can come up with one and we'll do it, or we'll start it out. And we do some of that throughout the year as well. And that's where we talk about the partnership, and it really goes all the way up to various levels. And sometimes it just gets to a level of, Jeremy, can you cover that? No, I'm already out driving. Okay, I'll go do it then. And we just, at the end of the day, we just want to make sure we work together just to get the job done. Get the kids to school, get them home from school, and do it safely.
Member Lawful-Kim, do you have a question related to this, or it's separate?
No, I'll go at the end.
Member Sadowski?
Thank you, Member Mike Sell, for that question. That was really good and informational, so thanks for the answers. I just wanted to say I appreciate your thoughtfulness and who you're hiring as the bus drivers, despite it being also really hard to hire right now for bus drivers. So thanks, Member Eder, for pointing that out too. And I just wanted to say, as a parent, I've appreciated your responsiveness. I haven't had my kids ride the bus too. They have since kindergarten. And I haven't had a lot of issues, but there was one issue along the way where I just got immediate response from Voyager and the school district, and it was just really helpful to help my kid navigate that and help us navigate that. So thank you.
Member Lawful-Kim?
Just a follow-up to, I kind of to responsiveness. I live in an area where there's 100 kids riding buses, and they're middle school, elementary, and high school, and their parents want them to be riding their bus in high school as well. And I know there was an issue of addressing a bus stop, and again, families really appreciated how it was handled in that particular situation. So, and I know there's many other situations, but just really wanted to have this opportunity to thank you again for working with families.
As we close, I would also like to say thank you for the partnership. I also want to say thank you for our own transportation department. I know there has been an increase in the number of students taking advantage of our transportation department. We, as a district, we believe in equity, and we believe in making sure our kids have access to reliable transportation. This year, we did implement a reduction of the radius for access to our transportation. Students who were 2 miles and 1.5 miles, if they live within a mile, they now have access to our district transportation. So I know that puts added pressure on the system. We also have increased and enhanced our transportation efforts for our Fit Foster, and I know that has also added some additional burden on the system. But at the end of the day, we are trying to make sure all of the students receive reliable transportation and transportation that they all are deserving of. And so, but I know I recognize that it has caused some stress on the situation and on the system. And like Derek Eater said, I remember Derek Eater said, we are hiring. So if we are always hiring, if the community is listening and you have individuals who are interested in helping transport students, please consider becoming a school bus driver. So thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Next up, under one of our district priorities, supporting every student, we have a presentation that will be provided by It's Adele. Yep. I was gonna say, I'm like, that threw me off. I'm like, I was gonna say, Advanced Equity is Family and Community Engagement update from Adele Wellens and Shalon Moreau, our Family and Community Engagement Specialist.
Really awkward that everyone's quiet. So how's everybody doing today? Everybody good? Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm glad you all are here. So it's been too long since I've seen your beautiful faces, so I'm glad you're here. We're going to get set up real quick, but while we're doing that, I am going to just pass around a flyer for you all, and we can discuss about that more. But Adele, give me 1 second. So we'll pretty much just kind of start off with the presentation. This is a update about family engagement and communications. And so the first slide we have is really just how we go about connecting throughout the school year. You all heard last year some of the events that we did at the Stephen O'Neill. This year, I tried to kind of do the same thing, but I am still kind of growing and learning and understanding. Thank you. What kind of events to do. And so I really wanted to gear this one to the students. So the first one with the picture to your right in the top corner is the Duluth STEM event that happened on May the 18th. Me along with Adele had our inner child come out. We got to play with the kids, do different pinwheel science experiment with them. We really got to engage with the parents, talking more about our unity in our community event. Some parents had questions when it came to different things about our school district. So we had flyers about what we do as a whole, anything we had little pamphlet information, but it was really about the STEM. So we got to kind of interact with the kids a lot. Second one is, these are kind of combined. We had a Duluth Loves to Read Day event co-hosted by Miss Sally Witt. I hope I'm saying her name right. And the Duluth library staff. I think it was May or April is I Love to Read month. And so we wanted to really bring reading outside of the classroom. We wanted to get families more engaged. And so, so we did that at the library. We actually had a book bingo, which was really fun. If you don't know, I'm a really big kid, so I love engaging with students a lot. And really got to meet parents that are from Two Harbors, parents that are from Evelyn Gilbert. They were in town for other events, but we got them to come by to the library. Kids got to pick out creative books thanks to our assistant superintendent who had a bunch of books for us. So it was really just good, again, really allowing parents to see that we want to engage with them and their child outside of just our school walls. And then another one that we did was we took a group of Denfield students, they were sophomores exactly, to the library for Teen Day, so they could really understand what the library has to offer. Myself, I learned what the library has to offer, and it has a lot. So that is the two pictures in the right. And we really focused on certain groups. We really wanted to focus on students who are of Native American, Indigenous, and then kids that were a part of the aspects, like the aspects who had sophomores or who knew sophomores that really could benefit from this project. So it's kind of what we did there. Sorry, I talk kind of fast, so I'm trying to slow myself down. Next up, we are talking about our Unity and our community event. It will be here before you know it, August the 19th. And so planning right now for that is underway. Planning starts literally in the summer, the school year before. It is something that we really try to make it a point that people understand that we are a community, we all live together, why not play together? And so right now, we're working with businesses in the Twin Ports and beyond as well to connect them and see if they want to help to sponsor this event. And we've got some response back. We still are waiting for some response, and if businesses want to respond, they have 4 to 6 weeks before we know if they're willing to help within sponsorship. We do have 2 events coming up at Texas Roadhouse and at Chipotle, where we are doing dine-in at Texas Roadhouse and then a dine-in takeout at Chipotle and Texas Roadhouse as well. 43 businesses so far have responded to our booth and performances from student groups at East, Denfield, and the community to spread their word and their knowledge about what they have to offer. So if you all were at the first 2, we're just gonna do it bigger and better every year. And then below we have a link to our Give Minnesota or Give MEN that has more about the Duluth unity in our community, along with the flyer that I gave you. Take it home, take it to your businesses. So it kind of tells you what we have at the event and more. Did you want to talk a little bit? Okay. And speaking of those flyers, they are right there. It kind of tells you what we have. The dine for Texas Roadhouse is the 23rd of this month, and then the 15th of July, and then the Chipotle is July the 8th as well. This one right here is kind of me engaging more with parents. This is the BIPOC parent monthly meeting that happens at the Washington Center. It happens every second and fourth Thursday. Salam Washington is actually in charge of it, and it's really parents that have kids that attend not only our school, but also the Washington Center. It has some employees who work there as well, who are also parents, and really community members. For me, this actually touches to the heart. I am not a parent, so I kind of get to understand the parents' aspect, what they're looking for, what they want to know about their child's education. Some that they just feel they can't really go inside our school hall, so I'm here to come out there and say, what can I bring to you? Whether that is a meeting with a principal, whether that is resources to understand, this is why it is important to have your child in school. If the child is absent, I need you to do these things because it only helps to better them. Superintendent Maggis did attend one of those meetings with me when it came to the technology referendum. And that meeting was kind of a 2-part meeting. He got to really explain the referendum to these parents, why it is so important, really knowing how well and how much we use technology each and every day. And then the meeting took a turn. But when it took that turn, it really allowed parents to say, this is our superintendent. Like, he's not just in our school building, he's not just in the building up the hall, but he's here with us. He's listening to our conversation. He wants to know what's going on. They have rules, they have things that they want to see in their child's school on the wall, and they went and they showed him, this is what we talk about. These are the real topics that we want to discuss. How do we get our foot inside the door? How do we get our voices heard? And so that was really profound for me because, again, not only is it just me doing my job, and I have to let everybody know there are so many people that have my job. There are so many people that help within student education, but my job is just to continue to help push that information out. So that is a meeting that I'm thankful that I was invited to, and I do my best to invite more because we want to hear everything that these parents have. It also tells you at the bottom, we just kind of help to break down misunderstandings, misconceptions of what education is, and how do we come together as one. sorry. Up next, we have our communication engagement outlook. This is from our semi-Minnesota multi-tier level of support systems. And at the bottom is just a chart of where we were last year in the fall of 2023 and then where we are now. And as you can see in family community engagement, we actually grew by 6%. We look at those numbers. We know data tells the truth. We know numbers are big, numbers are small. To me, that's a big improvement. Looking where we were at 0, literally a few months ago, and looking where we are now. I look at it, any improvement, whether big or small, is knowing that we are listening to our community. Is knowing that we as leaders, we as teachers are seeing those differences. One thing that if you kind of look up when I said engagement can look different. It can look different whether it's a conversation, it can look different whether it's a sheet of paper, it can look different whether we come and we break down why it's important to have your child in school every day. So that's something that not only is it me, but we as a district take pride in just moving up that needle, and that needle will continue to improve and to improve, not every year, every quarter. So thank you so much, and I'm going to pass the baton over to Adele.
First, before we move on, does anybody have any questions for Simone or Shalon regarding her part of the presentation?
Member Mike Hill?
Thank you for your presentation. I know the BIPOC parent meeting that you're able to attend, is that a meeting that the district has put together, or is that one that the community has that you're invited to?
Thank you for your question. That is one that the community put together, and then I went there for something, and Jacob Bell, the executive director, was telling me about it. They were getting started, and then he invited me, and then Salam Witherspoon, who's actually in charge of it, she kind of just brought me into it. So it's something that the community puts together.
Excellent. And then I was just curious, with those comments that you and the superintendent received, like, have we done anything to address some of their like requests or concerns like since then?
Yes, some of their I want to say conversations, not necessarily like comments. Some of their conversations is just about, their child not knowing, they're on the right level when it comes to like reading or getting help to just making sure that their child graduates. Some of the things that I've had was, what is it that you're looking for? Let's set up these meetings. Let's set up meetings with principals. One parent, I did set up a meeting with a high school principal, but her child was graduating. She just wanted to just make sure everything was okay. So I do take those conversations, those comments, and I do reach out to those individuals, staff, members, anything like that I can be able to set up meetings with, and then to bring the parent involved. So yes, ma'am.
I would also add that it was a good initial relationship building opportunity, but something that we also talked about and agreed as a group that like this needs to be something more ongoing. It can't be like can't be a one and done. And also sometimes over the years there's been meetings here and there where we maybe overpromise and underdeliver over time. And really it has to be about ongoing relationship and ongoing engagement. And that's really one of the main reasons why we added this position, is really thinking about when we, in fact, it's in some of the data we'll see here in just a minute, we were not doing much at all as a district systemically related to family engagement. There are pockets of engagement, but it's important for us to really invest in this much more deeply and have ongoing conversations and ongoing dialogue rather than a one and done type situation. So that's something that we'll look forward to continuing and having additional opportunities too.
Member Lafferkamp?
Yeah, just a follow-up. Thank you again. This is wonderful information. Family engagement, whatever families look like, is so key. These meetings that you're referring to, so are they ongoing? And are you getting different people at each meeting? Are you getting similar people, or the same people? I'm just kind of curious of the makeup of how we can grow those meetings, if that's what you want those meetings to be. Yeah.
This is actually the first year that they started. And so they want to make it ongoing. It's not something that's just for this school year. And the audience changes. Sometimes it's like 5 of the same parents. When Superintendent Maggis came, I saw 2 fathers, I saw a couple more, grandparents, and then the meeting after, it kind of fluctuates a little bit. So, but yeah, it's pretty much a steady of like at least 7 to 8 every meeting.
Can you give us information on if we run into people that this might be the kind of meeting they would want to be involved with? Is that something we could suggest to you or get your names or?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Anything
Location,
to
time and
me.
date, that kind of thing?
Yes, ma'am. I can definitely do that. I can send everyone a meeting, but not just to this meeting, but to any meeting, anything that you have somebody that wants to know about family engagement or communication, please definitely send them my way. But yeah, it's a meeting for not just, parents. There are some little kids, that happen to come in and kind of sit down, but it's a meeting for just those that want to really hear their voices and may not know the right way. So yes, ma'am.
Member Banks?
Just a quick question. Have you engaged or do you work with Families Rise Together, which is another organization that directly impacts BIPOC families?
I have not worked with them. I do know some of their individuals, but on a school level, no, so I have not worked with, engaged. I have reached out to them. I know we all have been busy, but I haven't really heard from them yet, but no.
Member Sadowski?
I would just say really quick, I really appreciate all that you've done really in a short period of time and the myriad of like different ways that you've been out, places you've been in the community, different activities that you've done. So thank you for your work on that. I was really especially pleased to see you getting a group of teens to the library. That's wonderful. They're a great community partner, and I know my kids have discovered that teen space, so it's nice to hear that other teens are getting out there too.
Thank you. We're trying to hopefully I say that because I'm learning about teenagers. We're trying to make that every year. So thank you so much, and thank you for just the comment. That means a lot to me.
Member Mikesell, and then Adele, can you just go back one slide with engagement? That one for me. I'll speak to that in a minute. Thank you.
That's
Member
my
Mikesell.
question, so maybe it's better directed to you. I was just hoping that someone could give a little bit more information about what exactly these numbers mean. And I don't know if it's because I'm not familiar with the Minnesota MTSS review, but if I can just understand what those values are representing.
Yes, and that's what I was going to explain, because the SEMI is an assessment tool. As you know, as a district for years, especially over the last 4 years, we've been really focused on the Minnesota model for MTSS. It's the multi-tier system of support. We have embraced the Minnesota model, which has 5 components, and those 5 components are listed in the different colors: infrastructure for continuous improvement. So how do districts engage in continuous improvement efforts? How do we engage in family and community engagement? Our multi-layered practices and support, that's how we provide interventions like reading and math supports for students. How do we go through a systematic process for identifying who needs those supports? How do we assess students in a lot of ways to identify if they have reading strengths and challenges, and just how we go about assessing, and how do we use data to make decisions. So that's this assessment tool is something that the entire leadership team in Duluth, including our principals, directors, and managers, we all took the survey and completed it. I came up with the initial rating, and that was done a year ago, and we just completed again in 2024 to see how we've progressed in our building of systems. Initially, as Ms. Monroe was sharing, Specialist Monroe was sharing, we start off, the entire leadership team rated ourselves as a 0, because there was many areas under the area of family and student engagement or community engagement that we didn't have as real systems according to the metrics of the SEMI. So we rated ourselves as a 0, which led to the creation of a position that we felt was needed to really increase and enhance community engagement and outreach. And not only did this assessment, based again off of our leadership, we also received a lot of feedback from our community in all the different stakeholder engagement opportunities. I think I mentioned Marnita's table. There was a big engagement effort done related to our school resource officer programming. That provided us some insight. There was a lot of engagement with community and stakeholders when we were doing our strategic planning process. Through the strategic planning process, information came out from community members that we really needed to have a better emphasis or more of an emphasis on family engagement, community engagement. So that's why, again, why we created a specific position that could really focus on it. And as a district, we're focusing on across our system in a variety of ways. And again, I saw members' faces when we say community engagement. Schools and departments have been engaged in a lot of community engagement efforts, and they continue to do so for years. And survey data still speaks in, that we receive indicated that we had a lot of room for growth, right? So have we always been engaged in community engagement, school by school, department by department? Yes. But our overall assessment and our continued feedback indicated that we need to do a better job. And so we've been working on it as a school district. So the data just indicates a scoring system, how we rate ourselves, and leads to the percentages that you're seeing.
So I see that our difference between 2023 and 2024 for family and community engagement has gone up. That's great.
Yes.
Do we need to have conversations about the other column or rows that seem to have negative numbers?
Yes, and we are having internal dialogue regarding those numbers and assessments, because again, it's meant for internal purposes for how we assess ourselves internally as a leadership team in our ongoing efforts. And what we saw is, under the Minnesota MTSS model, we felt as a team when we did that assessment most recently for 24, I think we understood more that we probably gave ourselves a little bit more credit for some things last year that we just said, okay, we think we're doing a good job in this area. This year, I think we took a more critical look at the components of the framework to say, well, are we really doing those things? And so I think we probably a little bit easier on ourselves the first time, and this time, I think we were a little bit more tougher and analyze the components a little bit deeper to say, are we truly really doing those things? And so the numbers did go down, but because I think we are taking it more seriously, and we're trying to make sure that if we weren't hitting the things that were indicators of success, that we really didn't give ourselves credit for it. Again, because we do believe in ongoing continuous improvement, so we're going to use this data to make goals for ourselves as a leadership team to identify ongoing improvement efforts in continuous improvement or use of data, or how we assess students and how we, again, build our systems of support for students. We're taking it, we took it serious the first time, but we're just making sure that we are truly identifying areas for improvement and taking it in earnest.
Got it. So just to clarify, this is internal measuring.
Yes.
And reflection, and not necessarily asking our community for input at this point.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct. It's a self-assessment of our own systems and structures. So thank you for that clarification.
I think another piece that is reflected here is we've been without our director of assessment, who is also the person who leads our data work for much of the year. And so we are finishing the process of hiring a new director of continuous improvement. And I think sometimes people are wondering, should we replace the position, with tight budget? But I think when we look at sometimes the effect of not having somebody in a position, not that it should rest solely with one individual, it rests with all of us, but there is impact when the director of a particular area is not in the position. So we believe it's important to frame that, and I will have more conversation with the board too about how this fits into our continuous improvement efforts.
Thank you. Member Larfla Kemp, and then we're going to move to Adele.
I love all the different ways that you've been reaching out in the community, and that is so key. I'm curious if future plans are, or maybe you're doing it in some ways, of just also looking at each school site to see, kind of do their own assessment of kind of community engagement within the school site through their principals or the leadership teams at the school. And I'm just curious if that's something, I know way back when I was very active with the PTA, we used to have different models of parent and family engagement that was really based at the school site, but they worked across the district too, and so I'm just kind of curious on that piece.
So we did bring forward a family and community engagement framework to all the schools, and part of that family engagement framework was an assessment that each school was to do with their CIT, so their continuous improvement team. So that assessment on the framework, I think, was about probably 4 pages of the framework, and it came from the National Association of School Public Relations rubric. So they were tasked with taking that back to their CITs and assessing themselves when they go forward to relook at their school improvement plans. Okay, moving on. I just kind of wanted to give you an update on where we are with Parent Square. I kind of gave you at our last presentation where we're at. So next year, we will be implementing Parent Square district-wide. I have already communicated this to principals and have told them that if they needed any professional training for their teachers during staff meetings, to reach out to me, and either I or Peter Graves would be willing to come to their schools. But just to give you an update since last time we spoke, which I believe was February, we've had our staff registration go up to 59%, which is 12% increase. Our parent registration has gone up 11%. We had our parents with the app go up 6%. You don't necessarily need the app to register. And then Lowell has been kicking butt, and they are at 73% with parents on the app, so have the app downloaded, and that is a 32% increase since we first implemented this. All the rest of the schools, other than ALC for obvious reasons, they are at 50 or above as of the end of May. And then this is a presentation that I have brought to clericals. It has been brought to cabinet. It also went to TLE and in front of principals. But we will no longer be mailing our back-to-school packets from the district. We will be moving to an electronic back-to-school guide. What's included in the current print one, we have this is the cost breakdown. This all comes out of my budget, so it's 18% of my total budget. To do the mailing, as you can see, the cost for a lot of it is $3,000 or plus. Everything that is included in the mailing packet will be included in the digital guide as well, except for obviously the envelopes. So I surveyed my Minnesota School PR Association and National School PR Association and asked them if they send printed packets to their families from the district. As you can see, 83.6% said no, 11.5% said yes, and then the 4.9% that said other, they just kind of had a combination, or they didn't have a back-to-school packet at all from their district, and it was handled by their sites. I did do a communication survey out to all families. I'm still working on aggregating that data and hope to have something for you either in August or September regarding the full data. But one of the questions I asked is, how do you want to receive communication? And I asked families to select all. I got over, I want to say, close to 600 responses across the district. So I had responses from each school. To be honest, I was just hoping for 13 responses, one from each school. But so as you can see, the top 3 things that parents prefer to receive their communication is email, Parent Square, and text message. Obviously, Parent Square does email and text message. So those are the 3 main ways that parents would like to receive information. And this also kind of helped me determine that mailing the back-to-school packet was something that I could remove from my budget so that I could reallocate funds for things that were originally ESSER funded. And as you can see, 3.6% preferred their information to come in the mail.
Member Williams?
Is there an option for families
Let
that do
me
not?
finish and
Okay,
you will
thank you.
get your question answered. So like I said, I brought this to all of the clericals. So they were fine with me moving to a digital back-to-school guide as long as they still got their packets. So each school will still get their 20 packets. Some of the schools get a little more like Homecroft and Lakewood because they don't have as many students. So the digital guide will go on our website, and then I will send a postcard to every single family in our district that has the QR code as well as the link to the website where they can find all the information. And then it will also have something on there that says, if you would like a physical copy of this packet, please reach out to your school, your student's school, so you can receive one. With this, obviously the website is already included in my budget, so adding another page is free. Postcards will come to about $167, and postage for the postcards will be about $13.25 for a total of $14.91, which is a savings of 17% of my budget. And then any other questions?
Yeah, so, sorry, that postcard, that does go out to each family?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Member Lafleur-Kemp?
This is really great information. I'm curious, the slide on how do you want to receive communication, and it had all of those. Were you specific on there about the back-to-school packet and the handbook?
Yes.
You know, they had an option to check that?
Yes.
How did that look?
Like, it was part of, like, it said mail, and then it had in parentheses what the types of things that they wanted to receive.
I have to say, I understand the cost piece of it. I have, just from my own background training on family and community engagement over the years, and even recently, I think there is value to getting that packet, and I understand you're looking at some other ways. But I always ask this question when we have gotten the handbook approval, you know, is it still going to get to families? And I guess I just have to say I have some mixed feelings about that handbook not being in printed copy for families to get. And you know, I know many families that, and I know we still can get it, or you're saying that, but I think it's a relationship building piece that I'm sad to see go away in the format it has. And so again, I know you're looking at other ways of communicating through the postcards and giving parents the option, or families the option to get it. I have mixed feelings about it, so I just want to share that with you, I guess, based on the ways I've been trained around parent and family communication and the importance of certain things. So I just share that.
Thank you, and thank you for the feedback. We will, like always, we constantly looking at improvement, so, and looking for feedback, and we will look for opportunities to receive feedback from families to see how things went regarding registration materials and packets. So we will look at those things and make sure we have some data to support ongoing continuation of this.
I would just like to add that the communication survey will be done yearly, so the questions will remain the same. So we will be doing the communications yearly to make sure that we are keeping in line with how parents want to be communicated.
Member Derek Eater, and then Member Sadowski.
Thank you. Thank you both for your presentation. I just want to say I've really liked Parent Square when I've used it. It's been pretty easy to navigate between both my children. So I've seen engagement with the high school teachers. I've been communicated about my older son with the high school teachers quite a bit with my younger son in elementary school. So it's great to see those numbers, because I think if we can get more parents involved, just having that app on your phone and that notification, and how easy it was for me to go back and sort when I needed to get some piece of information I forgot, to go back into Parent Square and find it very quickly. So I really have enjoyed the Parent Square, and I really hope to see the engagement with our parents go up, and I've seen great engagement with the teachers so far, so it's been great.
I appreciate that feedback, and I have gotten a lot of positive feedback to the point that during this survey, I did not have the option to allow further comments, so someone specifically emailed me and said that they really appreciated having one app for every school, so they didn't have to download a new one every year depending on what teacher they had.
That's awesome.
Member Sadowski and then Member Williams.
I totally agree about the Parent Square app, and it's nice, I guess I didn't know it was across all schools, so I appreciate you sharing that. You may have answered this question, but given the fact that we're going digital, I would just assume we're gonna be really mindful to have, like, that'll be the first thing on the page come fall, so that parents can find it there too, not buried. I figured you were on that. And then a follow-up question, are all the forms gonna be digital now? Will families have to print out the forms, or will they be completed online?
So I'm working with multiple departments on that. Most of the forms can be filled out through Infinite Campus, and actually our new educational benefits form is moving to Infinite Campus July 1. So we'll no longer be using the PAMS Pay for that form. So a majority of them can be filled out through Infinite Campus. And I believe that the only one that can't be filled out digitally is obviously any physicals, because obviously your doctor has to fill that out.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Member Williams, then Chair Lofo.
Back to the survey question, not to keep harping on the survey, but I think I missed how you said the survey was administered, but also when new families come in, when families move in the middle of the year or whatever, are they given this, or it's just the annual, this is what you'll be asked once a year?
So it's an annual, so it'll be asked in the spring every year.
So like if a new family came in, are they asked, how would you most like to be communicated with?
It's just once a year, so it's an annual survey that will be sent out, like our climate survey and our SRO surveys. And then it is built on our website, so it's on our website, and then it's been sent out via email, text message, and through Parent Square.
So I guess my question is, if like a family moved to the district, not before school started, but in the middle of the year, and they don't have access to technology to get the things that they need, how would they know where to go?
I guess I need a little more context about that. Because when new families come to school, the clericals at each site reach out with all the information that they need when they enroll.
Okay.
If that's what you're talking
Yep,
about.
yep.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
And that's what the extra packets at the schools are for also for new families.
Perfect, thank you.
Chair Lofo, then Superintendent Magus.
So my second question was what Member Zadowski said, so thank you for asking about all those other forms that are in there. And I get it. I mean, we've all gotten the back-to-school packets, and as a teacher and as a parent and as even a coach, I used to always love that I could stick some flyer in there to join speech or debate, but that's okay. We could maybe put that on there. But my first question is just kind of an interesting question, and I just throw it out there, maybe you can report back, is I think for me personally, I'd love to, it would help me understand, well, I think I understand why we're doing it and the savings. It'd be interesting for you to share with us where that money that now you will save can then be put to such good use that we could maybe understand why this packet and the savings we can, because with your department able to access, close to $17,000 more, and you can apply that to more abilities to reach parents for community engagement, for other things that we aren't able to do now because we're going to save that. That would just help me as a board member say, yeah, smart idea. When you're looking at what we can gain, but we'll have to grow. And I like the idea that we'll yearly review this?
So actually, I already have this money allocated. Okay, so this money, as well as the money that I have spent on advertising for our DTA bus, will be reallocated to the use of Parent Square. Parent Square was ESSER funded for this first year as a pilot, so all of that money has already been reallocated.
Will parents be able to access any of this information that used to be in our back-to-school packet through the Parent Square? I don't,
Yeah, it will be sent through Parent Square, which sends out an app notification. It will be in the app. It also sends out an email and a text message.
Sometimes somebody knocks on your door from Parent Square and the phone blows up with it.
Agreed. Because I was, as an administrator, I get them all. I eventually have to go in and all, undo those settings. Like, no, I had to deselect all the settings. Yeah. Superintendent Magus.
Sure. I just want to say, when we think about our three focus areas of supporting every student, advancing equity, and improving systems, I think really focusing on how are we improving our communications systems is really important. And I want to tie this back to the work we did on our desired daily experiences of our families, and our families desired to have more regular contact and be able to have things in a variety of different formats. And I think that what we've done with Parent Square, what we've done with our website, we're also exploring having an AI bot that would be able to answer questions based on things on our website. So you could ask it a question and say, when's kindergarten roundup or kindergarten registration? We don't round up kindergartners anymore at a particular school, and it would be able to give you that answer. So that's something we're doing. And really, we're going to be talking later tonight about the budget. And when we have our tough budget situations, we're really thinking about how do we're avoiding the word cuts because I think that sounds drastic and not thoughtful. We're really thinking about it as reductions and reallocation. And so I think that this is, it would be, Adele would love to have her budget increased so she could do the things that we need. We're lucky if we don't have to reduce Adele's budget, and so trying to reallocate is important. And then there was an article I shared with the board recently, and they talked about some truisms that you see when you're reducing budgets in school districts, and three things that seem to play into this a little bit is people expect the same level of service to which they've been accustomed, which we always want that, but if we have reductions, it's hard to do that. Sometimes the research doesn't matter, even though the research might say people are fine with email and electronics. Sometimes people do want the hard copy, and they do appreciate having that hard copy on the fridge. And then third, people want what they want, that sometimes what we prioritize is not necessarily incredibly logical. Sometimes it's based on matters of the heart. And I think this just exemplifies how we're going to have to wrestle with some of these things in a careful and thoughtful way. And I appreciate the attention that we're giving to this, and I also appreciate Simone's going to lay that out in greater detail too. But it's not going to be easy to go through the budget changes. All of the reductions, all of the reallocations are going to be hard decisions. And I appreciate everybody leaning into this with open heart and open mind.
Member Banks?
Well, sorry, and just to clarify, the only form that my packet ever included was the educational benefits form. All the other schools, they have their own back-to-school packets, and I'm not touching their back-to-school packets. They can continue to do however they want to do. The only benefit of moving to an electronic is that I can then take each of their packets and put it all in one spot on our website by school. So I will not be touching their packets. They continue to do their own. I do know that for sure East has moved to a digital packet. Denfeld still plans to send out their physical packets. So this is just my district packet, just for clarification.
Thank you for that.
Member Banks?
Yeah, I'm wondering how your outreach would be for homeless students and those families that may not have the technology and the phones and this, that, and the other. How would you reach them? Is that still going to be brought back to the school to do?
I actually work with our FIT coordinator, Caitlin Jamar, so I get her packets for all of her students' physical packets that she can hand out to all of her foster and family in transition.
I don't see any additional lights at this time. Anything else as we close out? All right. Thank you. I'll get it right this time. Supporting every student. Coming up to the stage is Erin Samala. So thank you, Erin. Erin is going to be providing some information related to our science curriculum and textbook adoption, and I appreciate him and his efforts. I am a former science teacher, so it's much appreciated, and science is still a passion of mine. So,
Thank you. Again, Aaron Salmel, I'm the district science curriculum specialist. And listening to Mike, who's sitting here, and his history, it jogged my memory. My dad was principal in 1971 when they merged. I was 10 months old, I think, but I just remember hearing him talking about it. So it was fun to go back down that memory lane. Wow. I guess anecdotal memory lane, but I'm here for the science adoption for high school. Some of you have been here for the elementary and middle school, and now it's high school. It's been an interesting adoption. We're still feeling the effects of some things of COVID, even though it's been 4 years, 3 years really. The new standards in science were written in 2019, I believe approved right at the end of 2019, right before COVID. And then COVID hit, and most school districts were in the middle of adopting and looking at new curriculum, going through the benchmarks. And this should have been done by the old plan easily last year, but they pushed it another year. In fact, I think it ended up being pushed 2 years. So our last adoption is the high school level. So currently the elementary is almost fully implemented in the science curriculum, teaching to the new standards. Next year will be 5th grade and 2nd grade will be implementing the new standards. Middle school, 6, 7, and 8 are all implementing the new standards. 7th and 8th, this was our first year doing it this year. 6th grade, this was their 2nd year. So now next year, high school will be fully implemented into it. With that comes some course changes. At the middle school, 6th grade used to be physical science. So 2 years ago, they started their new curriculum, and that was earth science. And 8th grade, which was earth science, this last year, this school year, they started their new curriculum, which is physical science. So then next year, when high school goes, probably the biggest switch was 9th grade is no longer physical science, it is now earth science. So that is something that has been statewide. Most schools have said, well, we're going to take all these earth science benchmarks and put it as an earth science class at 9th grade. So that was a big switch, and a good switch. We had earth science at the high schools was, I don't want to say non-existent, but it was pretty small in a lot of districts. And they were seeing a dramatic decrease in geologists in nationwide, not just in Minnesota, which is, we're a big geology state. So Minnesota really pushed for it. So that's a little history. So that was a big switch at the high school, was the new course in 9th grade. So we started this about a year and a half ago I started with the high school teachers, is starting the adoption process. And that included getting a team together of people who wanted to be on, the high school teachers who wanted to be on that. We got great representation. I work with an amazing group of teachers, K-12, and the high school teachers are amazing. I've been working with them all quite a bit this first week of summer, and they are just amazing people. So they all jumped on board. Now, we can't take everybody, so we were able to get representation from both schools, multiple teachers in all content areas to represent and start piloting and start choosing, going through the process. So with that came looking at the new standards. The new standards were written pretty much following the next generation science standards. which there's about 29, I think we're at, states that have adopted the next generation science standards. Minnesota couldn't adopt the NGSS standards as written because of our laws. We have to have written in benchmarks. But basically, Minnesota, which was the lead, one of the lead states in writing them, just took the next generation standards and kind of broke them out differently. So there was PD done with the teachers on these new standards and the new pedagogy on teaching them. And so they really understood the standards before going into looking at textbooks and looking at adoption and finding out which one really meets the drive of what those standards are. So we did that. And then we looked at several publishing companies. We looked at some free companies that offer free curriculum. And from that, narrowed it down to about 3 companies per course. And they started the pilot process in the fall. And they piloted different companies, about 10 weeks per company. So then from there, we met and narrowed it down to the companies that you see in your packet. So those are after about 3 quotes from each company and, being very conscious of, all right, this was probably a want, not necessarily a need on the first quotes. And with that, all right, let's pull that out and let's see if we can keep this number going down. So those are the companies that were chosen from about 3 from each of those courses. So that was the process. One thing I do want to say before I go any further, Minnesota also took and Minnesotatized the next generation science standards, which I like to call it that. So they took most of the NGSS standards and then they added some Minnesota ones, which was really neat. So these, we don't have a company that's going to write for Minnesota. They write for the nation. So there are some things in the standards that we are developing, the state is developing lessons for those. So if you go, well, do these align to the Minnesota science standards? No, they're missing probably about 1 or 2, 1 per grade level is probably where it comes out to be. So, K-12, I can't remember all the grades, but in middle school, 8th grade and, no, 6th grade and physics don't have the Minnesota American Indian Tribe benchmarks, but pretty much every grade level, K-12, has some that are specific to Minnesota American Indian Tribes, like their contribution to using sky for patterns, if I'm trying to come off, so yeah, that's one. And then Minnesota's, you're gonna see this a lot, that they're also putting in computer science standards in every content area. It's not necessarily, here's a computer science standards, ours have a little asterisk, here's an opportunity to do computer science, so that's another Minnesota-tized situation.
Member Loeffler-Kemp.
Excellent work. I actually always love the presentations on updating our curriculum adoption, so I don't know why I'm a geek that way. But I'm just wondering, with what you were saying about what's missing with the Minnesota, with the 1 or 2 pieces, how as a district, and how do you see our science teachers working to bring it in other ways?
We're doing a couple of things. One, I'm in contact with Fond du Lac and their education committee, and we're going to work with them more next year. Our science committee looked at we have a science committee, secondary science committee, about 8 of us, and we're developing a framework, a framework of different lessons. It's hard. I wish there was more. MDE is trying to create lessons for some of those benchmarks as well. UMD has interest in working with us and working with trying to develop those. I was in contact with them this school year, and we haven't been in contact with yet.
Excellent resources. Thank you.
We're lucky to have great resources in our community.
Member Derek Eater, and then Member Williams.
Thank you. I always love to see updated science adoption. It always makes my heart sing a little bit. So these books that I'm assuming for the high schools and the middle school, are those all digital books? Are we still lugging around paper books?
Some are paper and some are digital, and some are both. The earth science from McGraw-Hill is both digital and paper. The biology is both digital and paper. But each student will get, the earth science will get a book. The rest of the classes are classroom sets that they will have in the class for a hard copy, and then they'll have digital access. And then there'll be extras set aside for special ed classrooms, for hard copies, and in the library.
Great. My son is dyslexic, so access to digital textbooks where he can have the stuff read is hugely helpful for him. And I also, and I think everybody takes this for granted, kids that struggle with reading, they shouldn't be judged on reading and science, right? So the access to being able to hear that information in different ways they have access to it is, I find that to be hugely important and has helped him quite a bit. And
No, there
then
is-
also thinking about when we update, like as science changes, so I think about having textbooks that sit around for 10 years and it freaks me out because of how far information in science has changed in 10 years. So the capacity for the digital at least to be updated.
Yeah, it's a big plus with the digital. Yeah, and on a 10-year cycle now of adoption is very important. And we're excited because this is middle school is our first adoption in 20 years. So we're excited. And it's
I'm
going very
excited
well.
too.
I just want to reiterate, the Nat Geo textbook, which is our intro to our chem and intro chem, and then our Wiley book, which is our CITS physics chem, do not have digital components.
It's always the chemists and the physicists.
Yeah.
They always have to be the most difficult. Thank you.
Member Williams?
I turned my light off because I thought maybe it wasn't an important question, but I will ask. When you talked about your conversations with FDL, were you talking about the tribe or the college?
The tribe.
Okay, that's all. I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Superintendent Magus, and then Member Meixel.
I just want to say thank you for this important work, especially in the area of science. It's important that we have relevant and timely curriculum, and working on the next generation standards is very important. I'm not sure if you remember this, Assistant Superintendent Bonds, but about 10 years ago when we were directors down in Sun Prairie, one of our first tasks for curriculum was to work on our science adoption for next generation standards. And so I think it's really important to have the best curriculum we can possibly have for our kids, and especially given the tight budgets that we have, I'm glad that we're able to move forward with this. I know that there's always more that we would like for our students, and sometimes we have to go with what we need. But I really appreciate that you've been very thoughtful in selecting curriculum that is both relevant and reasonable in cost.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope that when next time you work with your committee, you also thank all the teachers that have spent extra time devoted to this and for our kids. I know in engaging with some staff, over the last few months, someone shared with me that there would be some frustrating times if one of the digital science programs, like if their site was down for a day or two or some, and the frustration that had where they had to adapt in the classroom on the fly. Is that something that we take into consideration as we assess, which textbook or company to use, just like, how their IT department works and how likely they are to, have issues and those kind of things?
Right. They say we're solid, on their IT, and it does go down. We have Savis at elementary and HMH in the middle school. We've been really solid with their IT not going down. If it does go down, we have hard copy books in each classroom if need be. And at the secondary level, the textbook, I don't want to say it's a resource, but it's a guide for sure. But it's more interwoven with autonomy with teachers' lessons, teachers' labs, and that. So if we were to go down for a couple of days, I wouldn't even say like a week, between the hard copy and a lot of us have PDFs that we use from the books, I think we would be fine.
Member Lafayette.
I just wanted to add 3 quick things. One is, thank you for including the physics and aerospace physics. I know kids really like that as an alternative to traditional physics, my own daughter included, so thank you on that and keeping that. And then I also just wanted to say the same thing Sarah Michelson said. Please share with all of the staff for the additional time they put into this committee. I know it's a lot of work, and really appreciate that. And then also just appreciate you. Some of you board members might not know, but the whole STAR-based program that 5th graders get to go to across the district, Erin did a great job in bringing that to our district and working to make it such a successful, exciting opportunity for all of our kids. So just a big thank you for your 30-some years working with us, and for that in particular, and the many other things.
I will make sure I let the teachers know, because it's a lot of work to be trying to teach the lessons and learning new stuff at the same time. Yeah, it's amazing. They've done amazing stuff.
Agreed. Thank you, and thank you. Send thank you to the team from me as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just, are the books here? Is all of this then ready to go in the fall?
Yeah, it will be ready. We can't run POs until board approval, and but yeah, it'll be in the classrooms by mid-August. Yeah, for sure. And all the companies have been nice. They have given us demos, and they all have the digital access as we're working this summer. Yep, for sure.
Thank you. And Board, I want to let you know that the next couple of items, they will be coming to the board as part of an action item for approval. So obviously, we don't take action here, but these will be items for approval at the next board meeting. So first up, we have our presentation from Adele Wellens regarding our student and family handbook.
For the record, normally Jake Laurent would do this, but he decided to go to Spain, which I thought was very rude. Would you guys prefer if I casted the handbook PDF? Or are you all, okay. Okay, I'll cast it. So, as many of you know, I guess 3 of you might, because you're new as of January, I think. We revamped the handbook last year to make it align with the Minnesota School Board Association's student handbook. So this year, we just had some minor changes. The assistant principals met with Jake Laurent, myself, and Jen Larva to go through the handbook page by page to see if there was any edits that would need to be done. The COW agenda cover sheet kind of has all those edits, but I want to make sure that I go through them because I realized the one that was attached to board book didn't have page numbers. So first thing I did was update the cover to a different color in the right year. Next, I updated the table of contents, made sure that the page numbers were lined up. And then I updated the school board members on your page here, so that has your information. One thing that was changed is we had removed the addresses because we had removed them from the website, so we felt like we could also remove them from the handbook as well. I also went through, and there was a lot of changes to the administrative team, but we've updated that. You will notice that there is a lot of TBDs for to be determined, we do have a few positions that are still being worked on to being fulfilled. Obviously, the director of assessment that you heard earlier, the principal for Laura MacArthur, the principal for Piedmont. I did get the new principal for Myers-Wilkins added in there, since she has already been gone through the hiring process. And then obviously did a lot of moving around with the assistant principals at the high school level and updated our programs. We have a couple of to be determined here, the Ojibwe Language Culture Coordinator, which they did interviews for today, I believe. The Professional Development Coordinator and the Reading and Language Arts Coordinator. And then you may not know, but Callie, can't remember her last name off the top of my head. Thank you. Has taken a job at MDE for the AWARE grant, so her position has also been vacated. On page,
Just a quick follow-up question on those. Given that the board is not approving it until next Tuesday, and we've got some finalist interviews for principal positions, I'm assuming that if things are ready to go in prior to print, we would make those changes, correct?
yeah. If any of those
affirmation from the
positions
board.
are officially announced before Tuesday, then we would be able to update that as well.
Thank you.
And then on page 10, what we updated was the arrival and dismissal hours. As you know, the bell times changed at the middle and high school, and then there was a line in the high school one that talked about 0 hour, so we removed that line as well, since there will no longer be a 0 hour. On page 19, as you guys approved the graduation requirement updates, so we did update those so that they reflect the new graduation requirements that were approved, I want to say a couple months ago by the school board. So that was updated. So now it has, as you can see, it has all the classes and the minimum required graduation credits that are needed. On page 22, luckily we're ahead of the legislation on this again. I did update our cell phone. What it originally had the bell times, like the exact bell times for middle and it said like from first period to sixth period, end of sixth period. So since we don't have, first and sixth period in high school and middle school differ, we just did it from first bell to last bell of the day. So that was a minor change there. On page 21, sorry, this isn't in order on my page. We did move the definition of discipline to the top here. That was a request by the assistant principals, so that it was just right there at the top, and we had that definition for discipline right at the beginning of that section. Also on page 22, originally we had the full dress code typed out, and that was because our dress code policy hadn't been updated in time last year. So what we did is we just kind of put 2 paragraphs in there, and then we added the dress policy to the appendixes so that it's completely spelled out in the back for parents there. On page 26, there was, in leaving the parking lot, one of the things that it said that students could get in their cars and drive away during an emergency. So we did take out the part about being able to get in their cars during an emergency and drive away, because obviously if they were to do that, it could cause congestion with our first responders. And it also goes against our new protocols that we're putting in place regarding emergencies at our schools. Also on page 26, we added THC, CBD, and marijuana to our tobacco-free section. Obviously, those are new things that have been made legal by the state legislature, so we wanted to make sure that that was included in here. We also added it to our behavior contact. So we had a lot of conversation. The APs were trying to decide whether THC and CBD and marijuana should go under level 4 along with prescription drugs and alcohol, or if it should go under level 3 with tobacco. They decided that they thought that it should go under level 4 with alcohol because it talks about a legal possession of alcohol, which if you're under 21, you obviously couldn't have. So we felt that having THC, CBD, and marijuana possession under there as well. So that was a decision made by the assistant principals. And then, any questions?
With,
Yep.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, when we also review those decisions too, so it's a strong input, but would be approved by assistant superintendent and others.
I guess I have a question on the words tobacco-free. Are there exceptions for like indigenous?
Yeah, that's in our tobacco policy. So there are.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Because tobacco-free just sounds really like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Okay.
That's just like the name of the policy, but there is, due to state statute, there are exceptions for Indigenous students to carry a pouch.
I have questions. Member Larfla-Kemp, and then.
Just a clarification, and we've actually had a tobacco policy for a number of years now.
Yeah. I was involved in Indian Ed. I guess my question is more of the verbiage tobacco-free, because I think that can cause confusion, but maybe that's just.
Yeah, so the tobacco-free schools possession of tobacco-related devices. So that's the exact name of our policy, our board policy. And then again, it does refer people to the appendix, which has the full policy written out. And as you can see, it says a limited exceptions to tobacco prohibition exists for all adult members of an Indian tribe as defined by Minnesota state law. And then it, again, goes to the appendix where the full policy is added.
Don't we have a
Question, Chair Lofel?
don't we have a smudging policy as well? So
We do. Yep.
Okay, so, I mean, I get your direction with, if our, yeah.
If we had tobacco-free asterisks, because free means it's not that cool. I'm stuck on the logistics because of my.
Nope, that's okay. I get it. And like I said, it's just what our policy is called, yeah. Yep.
Chair Lofel, you good? Okay.
The next change we made due to state law, that was changed, I want to say at the end of last session, and this was kind of a correction. So when it comes to detention, I obviously missed this, and I will change that. When it comes to detention, you can't take away recess as a form of punishment. So it should have recess removed from there, but it looks like I missed that in my edits. So I will make sure that's in the final draft for Tuesday, or for next Tuesday. So that will be taken out to comply with state law regarding that state law that says you can no longer take away recess as a punishment. Page 34. Yep. And then at the bottom of page 34, you'll see alternative to suspension. We replaced the office intervention definition with alternative to suspension because it more aligns with what we're currently doing at all of our schools now with the PAUSE program. And then on page 36, under communicable diseases, we added COVID-19. Obviously, it's something that we still have to report to our school nurses, so that was just in addition to our regular protocols. And that was also changed in our well child as well, so to align with CDC guidance. And then obviously the last thing that we did was we went through and you guys did a lot of updating and taking a lot of the thousands and making them 100s, so yay for that. But then I had to go through and make sure all of these were right. So I just made sure that the appendix was right to make sure that we had all the right numbers on here. Again, this is what MSBA has. And then I went through all the policies, which is the rest of the handbook, and made sure that they were the most recent policies, which extended a lot of the policies from one paragraph to multiple pages. So that is why our handbook's a little bit bigger this year.
Question, Member Banks?
Yeah, I may have missed this, you may have talked about it already, but is there something in the student handbook related to SROs and their roles as it relates to our students? Is there something that explains that so that students see it right when they get the handbook?
It does not look like we have school resource officers specifically in our handbook.
Was there something in mind? Obviously, it references all of our district policies as a link, but is there something that you are suggesting that we consider?
Yeah, I would just like if the board would consider at some point just putting that in the handbook so that students, when they get the handbook, they know that these individuals are in the schools and this is their roles. Because, you know, some kids have trouble with police, but if you put it in a booklet and they see it, they'll know what those responsibilities are. They know what their responsibilities are as well. And so it'd be great to have it in the handbook.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be easily added under the part one of information of just putting like the role of the school resource officer and then also putting the link to our webpage for more information. Yeah.
If that's possible.
Yes. Member Loeffler
Yeah,
Kemp?
that's exactly what I was going to say, to, at the minimum, put the link to the great section we now have on our website, so.
Member Sadowski?
I was just going to add, thank you for your work that you've done on our website overall, specifically around the SRO page and the information. A few years ago, that page, I don't think it was even on there when I was started on the board, and so I know Adele's put a lot of work into that and communication with families, but I think you have a good suggestion to have it in there, so.
Member Meixel?
I have two questions. So first is in the appendix, when you have the list of all of the policies that the different things refer to, it says model policy at the top of that column. And I assume you're referring to our own district policies at this point, so they're no longer model, they're our actual district policies, so that we could potentially take away model. And then my second question was, now that we're a mostly digital family and student handbook, would we be able to update it in real time when we have new staff coming in? So, because I heard the superintendent talk about like, oh, hopefully we can get new hires added to the handbook before we vote on it next week. So I wasn't sure if it was something that we can only vote on this annually, so we can't update as necessary. But if we have this digital platform, it seems like.
I think we could do that, as long as the board is okay that it wouldn't be something like, you know, you've approved it with a TBD, and so you're saying that's the way it needs to stay. If there's an understanding that it's going to be kind of an evergreen thing, I would suggest if we were, let's say we decide to have like a very drastic change in dress code or something like that, I would suggest that if we're doing that and changing the handbook in the interim, that we would have some sort of significant notification process so that people who maybe had a printed copy at home weren't referring to something old. So we'd want to make sure, I love the idea of having it be refreshed and evergreen as we have changes. But I think we would want to kind of do our due diligence to make sure that we were notifying people of any major changes.
Member Loeffler Kemp,
I
then
just,
Chair
in addition
Lofel.
to that page 39 on school district policy cross-reference, I'm wondering where you have in smaller, all district policies can be found, all adopted district policies can be found online. It just.
And then I've been working on a web page that kind of breaks down the student handbook, because I do realize that not every parent's going to want to have to flip through. They just want to be able to find what is affecting their student today. So I have done a lot of research on a lot of different websites, a lot of school websites, and I feel like I have some really great examples. I mean, in school PR, we always talk about, don't reinvent the wheel, just steal what's out there. So I've been working with a couple of my school PR friends from like Robbinsdale. They have a really good student handbook webpage to make sure that it's very concise and very easy for parents to look at. And then also, obviously, still have the link to be able to be downloaded if they want the PDF version.
Chair
So
Lofo?
I think I've heard this a couple of times, I just want it more clarified. So our student handbook is going to be printed and mailed or given?
So it will be printed in the packets that are given to the schools, to the sites. That if anybody wants a physical copy of the packet, they will be able to get that packet. They also can always go to the schools and get a physical copy of the student handbook, as well as come to the district for a physical copy of the handbook.
Am I missing something? I'm still not clear whether we are printing handbooks and giving them to all students or families or not.
So can I talk to that maybe a little bit? We're not going to be giving students a physical copy of the handbook, and we haven't done, oh, well, they get one at home. But what we have done is we've put it in a Canvas, and so then every student has it in their Canvas, and it's always there, so every time that they go in there, they can get it. The other piece of this is that there are certain components and pieces of the handbook that we must go over with students at the beginning of the year, and so our principals have a presentation that they deliver to students at grade level meetings or during advisory or however they determine that they need to get that information to them. So those pieces those required pieces are reviewed with a staff member with students. So that's how we've made sure that the messaging is getting out. It's not just like handing a handbook to students, it's gone over with students, those important pertinent pieces.
And then
Member
there's
Sadowski?
there's also a link under our links on Parent Square. So if someone were to open up the app, click on the links, there's always a link to the student handbook on Parent Square as well, a PDF version.
Questions? Seeing none, I also want to thank the team for working on this, the administrators as well as Mr. Laurent, and I want to thank Adele too. Adele has taken on helping to reformat our handbook and making it more accessible to students and families. So I want to thank her for doing that hard work as well. Next up, again, board, this is an item that will move to the school board on June 18th as an action item. It is our very own Executive Director Zunich, who's going to come to the table and share information related to the proposed budget.
So thank you, Executive Director Zunich, for sharing on our proposed budget for the second reading.
Okay, I just think my voice carries all the time. Good evening. Thank you for having me to present the FY25 final proposed budget. I'm asking that it come to the school board meeting next Tuesday on the 18th for adoption. I will review each page, but essentially it is very close to what I presented to you on May 7th at the COW. I made one slight change under general revenue. I was able to improve that slightly by roughly $315,000. But for the most part, it is they're the same numbers. I've also included some very nice colorful reports from Frontline Analytics, and those reports are getting better. They're going to do better next year. I've called them several times and said, I think school boards would like this, so now I got myself on a little committee to help them. So that was my fault. But we look to improve things. So they're like, we never saw this. So I'm like, okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to start. The first page, I just outlined what the general fund includes, which is our Fund 1. It's transportation and our operating capital. And within the general and operating capital funds, certain revenues will have reserve requirements. Additional funds include food service, which is Fund 2, community service, which is Fund 4, construction Fund 6, and debt service 7, Trust Fund 8, and Internal Service Fund 20. The process for general fund revenue budgeting will include projecting and analyzing current federal, state, and local revenues, along with forecasting legislative or local district changes to revenues. So a review of the budget provisions made for FY25. As always, the district is going to strive for fiscal stability and sustainability for future years. The board policy, or the district policy is 8% of the general fund to keep what we essentially a savings account. This year, we're going to be utilizing the assigned fund balance and district-wide operational budget cost reductions to help stabilize the FY25 budget. And as we go to further slides, I'll show you exactly what those amounts are. So our local levy increased by $2.6 million due to question 1 passing on the referendum. Our state aid increase overall increased only by 2%, but we did receive a special education cross-subsidy aid 4% over last year. And our basic formula allowance increased by 2%. I did confirm this with MDE. It's a flat 2. Maybe next year, 2 to 3%, but it's not a lot. 1% is roughly $620,000. We're also going to speak to the assigned fund balance transfer. Our intent is to use $5 million from the assigned fund balance to offset the general education budget. Our changes this year, of course, we have programming changes. We have middle school and high school model changes, which have also added some FTE. Our title funding, we only got 1.5% over last year, so that came to about $46,000. We have library aid of $140,000, American Indian education aid. We are receiving $304,000. Our student support personnel aid, $100,000. Now that piece right there, we just got clarification from MDE that we can make a restricted fund balance with that money if we don't spend it all. So I'm excited about that because some districts are struggling to spend that money. So we will be able to have a restricted fund. It's generally, it comes out of the special education department, and it's it's personnel supporting students. So I do have a handout at the bottom from MDE, and it kind of explains it a little bit better. But I'm under student support personnel aid, and it really applies to districts that work a lot with co-ops, which we do not. But we'll be creative and we will find ways to spend the money. So I will be working with our special education department. But the good news is, about 12 weeks ago, they said, you have to spend the money by June 30th. And then our friend at MDE found a way to create a restricted fund. So if we don't spend it all down, I can carry it over. Our English learner revenue, we do not get a lot of money here, but we did get an additional $36,000. Honestly, we get approximately $42,000 in English learner aids. It's not a lot. And we were lucky enough to get a CTE state grant for $174,000. So our wonderful CTE program is really growing, and so we will have some dedicated money for that program.
Member Banks?
So do you want questions now or?
Sure.
Oh, okay. So
Sure.
looking at the American Indian Education Aid, can you explain what that is? Is that salary or is that, what is that?
You are correct. We can use it for labor and benefits. So the American Indian Education Program is funded by federal money and state money. So they are now going to give us an additional amount of funds to help for labor and benefits. Okay? Yes? And I think,
Member Lafleur?
Yeah, just on the English learner revenue, so does that go to our adult basic education?
it does not. We use it, we have an increased amount of students that are in the district. We used to have like 12 to 15, and now we're at 77 students that require English learning. And we can use that money for that, but for the most part, it's 90% funded by the general fund.
Okay, and so we're seeing an increase.
Oh,
And I think we're going to see more, just because I know there's a lot of efforts with refugees coming to Duluth through a variety of sources, so.
They did tell us to prepare for that.
Yeah,
You're
okay,
correct.
okay,
Yes.
good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for that question, because and Simone has indicated that there's an increase. Executive Director Zunich, I'm sorry, has shared that there has been definite increase in students needing support, and that is coming out of the general fund and because there are students. But when we start thinking about expenses, just know that not only in this area, what may not be up there as well as our students who are fit and foster. Our students who are unhoused has significantly increased as well, and so there's additional expenditures there that may not be reflected here, but those students are also supported out of the general fund as well. So just wanted to point that out. And the American Indian Aid, that's where our coordinator, Jennifer Garble, that's the Department of American Indian Programming in our district. She oversees that pot of money.
Thank you, Anthony. Okay, let's go to the next page.
One more question, Simone.
Just really quick, sorry. No, that's okay, just a really quick question. You had thrown out a number that, you know, from MDE, we got a flat 2%, and you had thrown out a number, like, what is 1%?
Roughly 620,000.
Okay.
Well, what's half of 1.225? So it's roughly that.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, here's another informational page. Our basic 25 formula allowance is $7,281 per pupil. This is a 2% increase based on the 24 legislation. So for pupil counts now, are budgeted at 7,999. It's a slight increase in FY '25 compared to the '24 budgeted enrollment of 7,989 adjusted average daily membership. I am being bold, and I'm going to project our adjusted ADM at 8,074. I think I have told you that our 22-23, we just got our final numbers about a couple of months ago, and they came in at 8,123. So with conversation with the superintendent, assistant superintendent, we thought 8,074 was a safe number. Food and nutrition, we have free breakfast and lunch for all students. That will continue in '25. The application for educational benefits, the free and reduced meal form, is still required by MDE to be filled out by families. I just had a meeting yesterday with our food and nutrition coordinator, Sheila Oak, who does an amazing job. And we are getting more and more students that are actually direct certified. So those forms are actually automatically filled out. So we need to do a better job of clarifying who needs to, we want everyone to fill them out. Obviously, that's how we get our compensatory money and any funds for any extracurricular programs. So I'm going to be digging into that and bringing more information to you. And our other local revenues are estimated by prior year funding amounts. Basically, we use what our actuals were and roll them over and perhaps add a couple percents. So our local revenue includes property tax levy, miscellaneous tax revenues, county apportionment, tuition fees, admissions, medical assistance, interest earnings, rent, gifts, and bequests. Our state revenue includes payments by the Minnesota Department of Education and other state agencies. Federal revenue includes aids awarded through state agencies or directly from federal sources. So that was our ESSER money that is sunsetting on June 30th of 2024. We will have a small amount that we will be rolling over that can be used for extended school years, so summer school, but that money has to be spent by September 30th. And our assistant superintendent has been given those guidelines. And so we will be using them for summer school activities. This timeline is the same one I gave you back on May 7th. We've had some wonderful individual board meetings, our small group meetings. I feel we're great. We did a board work session on April 25th, which I loved as well. May 7th, the Committee of the Whole was our first reading. June 11th was our HR Business Services. All that you saw on Tuesday is we had the resolution that needs to be adopted then on next Tuesday. And tonight, of course, is the 13th. In July, and I believe next week, the superintendent will also be talking to you about our guiding change document. So tonight I'll give you what the numbers look like. The next step is to tell you what the proposal is to go through our cost reallocations.
Thank you, Simone. I have some questions right now. Member Banks?
Yeah, so I'm looking at page 2.
Page 2,
Yeah,
okay?
at the top there,
Yes,
the basic fiscal year 25 formula.
yes.
The 7281, and then you say there was an increase 2%. So just need clarification. Hasn't that number been higher in past years, or is this?
No, it's not been higher, and that is set by the Department of Education.
Okay.
And if at any time, if you'd like, I can show you where to look those up as well. They're available to the public. But back years ago, they were in the 6,000s, and they're slowly increasing.
I see. Okay.
Unfortunately, I do wish they were higher, but no.
I always thought it was, a few years ago, it was in the 8,000s, so it's interesting.
Our enrollment was.
Yes, of
The
course.
enrollment was, but this is actually our basic formula allowance, how much we get per student.
Per student, yeah.
Yes.
Yep, thank you.
Chair Lofel?
And just to further that line that Member Banks talked about, I understand the formula amount, but the fact that our legislation this past term did not look at inflation, there was just a big document on NPR this week about inflation in the state of Minnesota, and the fact that our legislation didn't look at, they had the ability, the 2023 session said they would adjust to inflation. And that was a big part of their message to us, their success, their historic funding. And we didn't see it. And a 3% would have really helped us in these tight times. I just am going to go back because I'm always confused with our free and reduced lunch forms, and I'm glad to hear that some forms for some of our students are directly filled out because of other supports they're getting. But we still, so is the Minnesota Department of Education, how are they basing comp dollars since COVID happened, or free and reduced lunch for all, or free lunch for all? I thought that there was, or universal, that's the word. I thought that they had kind of said, okay, we're going to give you your comp dollars based on your 2019 or something figures, and is that still what they're doing, or is there a little bit of both of those? How are they figuring out comp ed dollars, and are we getting as much as we were getting, or less or more?
Well, the good news is we're getting a nice increase, and the legislation just passed that it's going to be held harmless to FY '27. Before it was '26, so we got another year at a very nice increase. And even if these students are direct certified, they still consider those as forms. And that is, those forms and any physical forms, there's a formula, it's quite complex, and that's how they give us our comp ed formula. So in about the 3 years I've been here, we've had, over a $2.5 million increase in our comp ed funding. So it has increased nicely. So I feel like they've not given us money in some pots, but they've been able to increase it in others, and they are going to hold harmless to our comp ed money. I have included that in a slide what the dollar amount is.
And it does get confusing and tricky, especially when, Simone, Executive Director, starts talking about hold harmless, because you're right. On one side, they say, make sure we get families to fill it out because some aid is based on those numbers, but then they will give us some grace and hold us harmless and keep the money level the same, which is great because we won't be punished or penalized when, especially during COVID, when kiddos were not in seats, and, so they kept us at the same level, held us harmless with finances, but at the same time, we still need the numbers because title is built around that, comp ed numbers truly are still built around that, so they still use that information to determine some funding streams. So we do encourage and we do strive to make sure families complete that form because it helps us, and it helps them too as well, because it also, if families complete those forms, it may help students with waivers, those who may need assistance for athletics and activities. That information helps provide waiver opportunities for those students and eligibility. Member Lafleur-Kemp, and
Yeah,
then
I was
Superintendent
just
Magnus.
going to mention also with the lunch in our food service budget, it gets even more complicated because we can't use that money for anything except within that budget. And the average person in the community thinks we can. So there's that piece, and if you want to say something. And then the other piece I just want to maybe a little more explanation on, kind of a follow-up to Member Banks, on the per pupil. You explained this in our small meetings so well about it's just not a straight count, the per pupil. And that, I think, also gets kind of confusing when we say, oh, we got, whatever per pupil, but it's not that easy.
So
Yeah.
those are great questions. That 7,281, that is a hard number set by MDE. But when we do our estimates, so this, I think late winter, I worked with our Mars coordinator, and we went and did estimates for next year and potentially the following year. So, and then a year and a half later, they put in the actuals. It is just a commingling of years back and forth, but that 7,281 is not a number that I can manipulate. Even if we have what we call a revenue what if, and I can go in and say how many kids I think we might get more of or less of, no matter what, that 7,281 stays solid, so.
Superintendent Magnus?
Sure. We mentioned the CTE money that was specific to us, and just wanted to say that we're very grateful to the representatives and senators who supported that. It was a broad support and bipartisan support, so that's something we're thankful for. And then as we come into the next budget year, I'm grateful to be serving as the MASA incoming president for the legislative committee, and I think that will give our district voice, but I think it will also be important for us to continue to strongly voice what are the needs of the school districts across the state, because we hear very similar patterns in many districts. The technology needs, failed referenda, all of those things are things that are the need for CTE funding, safety funding, all of those things, and as you mentioned, the percentage increase. I mean, if we're going to have a budget that's tied to inflation, yet we don't increase it when we have significant inflation, it seems kind of counterintuitive. So I think it's important for us to really press those issues. And I know that the board has been particularly active with also putting forward resolutions through MSBA, and I think those are due towards the end of September. So if we think about what is it that we want as far as those legislative asks, I think we can have some combined effort from a number of different state entities to try and find more resource for our kids.
And I think regarding the food service question, yes, so we cannot commingle these funds. Food service stays to itself, as does community service. All the funds except for funds 1, 3, and 5. 1 is our general fund, 3 is transportation, 5 is our capital or facilities. Those make up the general fund. As I said, I met with the food and nutrition group yesterday, and we asked for a revision this spring to food and nutrition. I think we came in pretty close. And Sheila Oak will be working more on adding a, I forgot the words, to do more additional selling of food. Oh, thank you, a la carte. She's going to be increasing the a la carte line next year. So, so if students want to purchase more food, but fruits and vegetables are always free. And they serve a lot of students. They have supper programs, and there is also an increased audit now on food and nutrition. Just before I came up here, I was reading another document from MDE. We are not chosen for the next audit, but there's a big audit coming for many districts on the food nutrition program, so. Okay, moving on. Let's see, right here is where, this is the same slide I gave you at the committee of the whole. This was our projected enrollment. This can change, but this is why, you see at the end of '25, it's minus 134. The next year is minus 98, 92, 81, 93. And that's how we came to the average of less 100 students a year. Most districts are letting people know that they're seeing declining enrollment. I think we're stable. I don't know that we're really overall declining. I know that some of the other non-public schools in the city of Duluth are projecting that they're going to be down students as well. Some of those sites are going to be adding an 11th and a 12th grade. So it's really all an estimate. I think it's safest for us to assume we're going to get 100 less a year. And, but I did add 74 back in, so. Anyway, so that's that document right there. And here are what we call categorical aids. I just broke it down for all of you. I won't read through each one, but this is the aid as it looks today, with the revenue what if, what we call, to use to, to budget for our dollars. The only one I added on here was the READ Act, $315,777. At the end of this handout, I did give you one page that shows what some of the districts got, and it shows on there. We are getting $374,000 for this year. I received an email from one of my colleagues. We're going to have to do some work there. We have to figure out how to apply for the money. So that's good. Our restricted and reserved, our staff development. So the first line is 2% of our basic formula aid, and that's how we come up with that 1.2 million. And there, if you see the basic skills and comp ed, the third one down, this is how much we're going to be getting in FY '25 for what we call comp ed. There is some basic skills dollars built in there, and we will be able to use that number now for the next 3 years. When I got here, I was roughly 5.5 million, so gifted and talented, 114,000. So anyway, that's what the categorical aids are. I have some revenue notes there. As I mentioned, we're going to be pulling $300,000 of ESSER funds it's called Finance 161. That is our extended school year ESSER money, and they're allowing us to spend that by September 30th. Our special education cross-subsidy increase came to $4,370,000. So up above, there was, special education is going to get 18 million in aid, plus I get to add that cross-subsidy. So that's why it came to a little over 22 million.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Member Larfla-Kemp.
Yeah, just a quick question back to comp ed. Were there any changes in how that comp ed money could be used? I know there were a number of kind of categories, I guess. Is that still the same?
Not really, no. It has basically stayed the same.
Okay, because that might be just.
I could
Those
provide, I
categories
could
might
do.
be helpful for people.
Sure, I could provide something about our comp ed and what the outline is of all that, of how we can spend that. So I can do that at one of our meetings.
Great, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're welcome.
And it may help, and then I'll come to you, Member Banks. Just as a reminder, some of the things that comp ed can be spent on, and that's why some schools you may see lower class sizes, especially in our westerly schools. Those dollars can be used to reduce class sizes. And so we know there's always concerns about class sizes, but sites that have more comp ed dollars and more title dollars, that money can be used for class size reductions, that you can purchase, I hate to say purchase, but we can add reading and math specialists, for interventions and support for students. You can provide after-school programming and tutoring, add counselors. You can do a number of things that are allowed with the use of title dollars, and in this case, comp ed dollars. So just know
Yeah,
that.
that's where I think that would be really helpful. I just know when we kind of studied it a few years ago that I think it was opened up some eyes on what it could be used for across the district and in specific schools. So
That's I'd be happy to do that.
That would be helpful information.
I guess I do have a response or a question. So with that, is it, we strive on equity and inclusion and all of that. So with the comp ed dollars across the district, are those dollars equitable based on need, school need, or student need in specific schools, for example?
That's a very good question, and I will do a presentation for you about this, but every site is awarded an allowance. And every site, we keep that money at that site now. The legislation says we only need to keep 80% of that, and that the other 20 can be used elsewhere. But the district, between the superintendent and assistant superintendent, made a decision, which I fully support, that we keep all the money at each site. So I have a breakdown that I get from MDE, how much is awarded to each site, and that's where we keep it.
And I'll give a quick example. Sites that have more students with who are free reduced. Let's just choose a school like Lord MacArthur, for example. Whatever amount of money they generate for the students that are there, they keep those dollars there, and then Lord MacArthur is able to then add additional teachers to reduce their class sizes. Lord MacArthur is able to add deans to help support SEB. Lord MacArthur is able to add other positions to help support students and provide after-school programming for those students. So we are making sure that those dollars are staying with those students, and that's how we ensure equity is happening, because those students are generating it, they have the most needs, the dollars stay with them. And I would be remiss to not say that that doesn't mean that other schools or Easterly schools don't have needs as well. But as we use the dollars and apply them in equitable fashion, the students who generate them and have more needs, those dollars are following those students. I'm going to go to the next member, Derek Eater, and then I'll go to Chair Lovell.
I just had a quick, can you talk a little bit about the special education cross-subsidy increase? Because I'm trying to put that back to, I know there was some legislate. Can you just explain that to me again, please?
There was legislation so it's different from the money that was asked.
The one time, that's
The
different than the
one-time.
one-time money.
Yes, so this money is the state's way of giving us it on top of the regular aid formula. It is so complex, it's 3 pages long, and not even our MDE finance director can follow it that carefully. She's good, but it is quite complex. And so this is their way of saying, based on your enrollment and your expenditures, and there's a big document, I can share it with you, and A minus B equals C to the third power. They give us this cross-subsidy aid, but it's their way of adding additional funds to us.
And it is, okay, thank you.
And I'll comment on this too. Basically, like, sort of the idiot's guide, because might be that idiot, is that roughly we're getting about 40% back. That was, so as a district, we spend more on special education than we receive. And so the state recognized that and said, okay, we're not gonna pay you all that you're spending, but we'll give you 40% of what you're spending. And so just to a degree, it goes through the complex formula mechanism, and we get roughly that amount back that we then put back into the general budget. So it's kind of like we did receive a general increase to the funding we have for our kids, but it still doesn't cover what we already are, in some ways you could say, overspending on our special education kids. And by overspending, I'm not diminishing the needs. I'm saying we're spending money that is not provided through special education.
And does that money then, I can't remember, does that money stay within the special, that money goes back to special education?
I can only use it for special
Got it, okay.
education. It's designated that way when it comes to us.
Got it, okay, thank you.
But
You're welcome.
hypothetically, it would mean that we would be potentially spending a little less out of the general fund on special education needs.
Right.
But the special education needs are so great for our kids that it doesn't make up for it anyway.
I'll do a little math to help picture it. So if we spend $20 million on special education, 60% of it is paid by special ed, so that's 20 times 6, that's 12 million. And the other 40% would have to come from the general education fund, so that'd be 8 million. Well, they're saying, okay, we're gonna help the gen ed funding, and we're gonna give you 4.4 million. So they're trying to offset the 40% that we have to spend. Does that help?
Member Meixel?
On that same line, is that just for this coming year, or is that going to be annual?
Every year.
Every year? So
And
every
that
year
number
we
will
can-
change.
It'll change
Correct.
based on the amount that we are paying out of the general funds?
Correct. So when we do our audit, everything's coded to that finance code for special education.
Right.
And then they look at your expenses. And like I said, I'm going to share that 3-page document with you, and you're going to be like, and they come up with it, and then it's 4.4 million at the bottom of the page.
And then that basic fund allowance increase as well?
Yes.
Under the revenue notes, is that also annual going forward?
Always, but that number can change. So next year, it might be 3%, so it will change from year to year.
Do all of our budget or revenue items vary every year?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that's not
We-
different than the other.
No, but we hope it always is to the good. So for instance, special education, I was looking this up last year, was at 16 million it's 18 million this year.
Chair Lofel?
But with all of those comments that CFO Zunich has shared with the increases, we also know that the need has increased. So, even though we see increased in what we're receiving from the different agencies, it's quickly spent by the increasing demand and needs of the service we want to provide to our students. I'm going to go back to comp ed, and it's actually been said, so I should keep my mic off because then it gets longer, but I just think that, I'd like to take advantage too of educating our community, because one of the things you will all get asked, and it's a hot button issue, is comp ed dollars, and how do we know that the schools are getting what they have earned. This board went bold in 2018 and made a resolution that in 2018, 80% was going to go, and that it was going to increase by 5% every year, and then COVID hit, and we weren't ever sure what we were getting, not just as board members, but as our CFO was leading us through that COVID time. So again, I want to applaud the board and our administration for staying, steadfast in how they allocate comp dollars, even though back in 2018, our legislators said 50% of your comp ed dollars needs to stay in the school that receives it, and that comp dollars can be used to reduce class size across the district or in other ways of supporting students in other buildings. And like Assistant Superintendent said, it's not that our other buildings don't have needs and students that also have, struggles. It's that, this was the intent of the legislation way back in 2009 for comp ed for students that are in a socioeconomic section. So again, I think that anytime we have a chance to present about comp ed dollars, and again, I'll go back to a legislator who made a comment at an AMSD meeting that Superintendent Megas and I were at. If we could just simplify financial school financing, we as a board wouldn't always get attacked as we are somehow hiding money or we are somehow not transparent. We are transparent. Everything is up, it's recorded, it's on YouTube. We have handouts, we have graphs, but especially in that comp ed. But thank you for clarifying that. You've made a commitment for 100% of the comp ed dollars that we are given for those schools are going to those schools. And that's how they are hiring extra social workers, extra reading interventionists, lower class sizes. Great stuff.
Yeah, I
Member
look
Lawful
forward.
Kemp?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just should fund schools the way we need it so that we don't have to worry about that either.
Here, here. Member Lawful Kemp?
I agree with everything that Chair Lovell just said, and that's why I think it's just really important we all understand all the ways it can be used. What I was just going to just raise up for a second is the whole discussion around special ed. I think this is really a good example about how our lobbying can be very powerful as school board members and as a district on special ed, because when we go down to the Capitol now, many of the current legislators, they know the Duluth story. They need to keep hearing the Duluth story about the great need for special ed. But we've really worked over the years now on making sure people understand the great need here in Duluth for special ed. And so I just, as we're talking about it, I just felt like I also needed to turn my mic on to say, really, this is such a good example about how powerful our voice is in telling the Duluth story and inviting you to already to think about next year when we're being led by Superintendent Magus on as a legislative guy with AMSD.
Future forward.
Future forward. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to do more education on comp ed. I will bring something to you. Okay, so this looks the same as what I presented to you on May 7th, except for I was able to reduce the general fund line. You read straight across, so general fund revenues and general fund expenditures. We are $6,150,306 over budget for next year. It was at 6.4 million. Due to the READ Act funding, I was able to lower that. And our food service is over budget by $80,000. I met with the food service team yesterday. We're right now for this year looking like we're going to be to the good. However, with contract increases, I increased it to, that is it's a good guess right there. We're to the good right now. We're almost at year end for food service. And just as a reminder, food service cannot have more than 15% in their fund balance. They don't want it, we're not here to make money off of the food program. So if there is more, then we get a nice letter from MDE saying, spend some money and buy new refrigerators or whatnot. So I know one of the people yesterday said, we could use some ovens at another school. Well, so if our funds, our food service comes in high, then we will perhaps pay for it out of Fund 2. We'll see how that goes. Community service, of course, is a revenue generator. I'm saying right now they're going to be to the good of $799,000. Fund 6 is our construction fund. That's what built this building. We still have a little bit of money left. We're looking at the transportation add-on. We have to see where that lands. And Fund 7 is our debt service. Because we passed question 1, that got better. And so our debt service, we look like we're going to bring in 28 million, and our expenditures will be at 27.3 to the good of 673,000. All we will do is keep that money in Fund 7, and we'll offset any payments going forward. Our trust is our insurance, our very small insurance fund for our retirees that retired before a certain date. I think here in this district, it was 1999, like where I came from. And they still have what we call fund balances. So they still have funds sitting with the district. And if we need to offset some expenditures, if there isn't enough money, that's what that's used for. The internal service is our internal dental fund. And then our student activities, that's fundraising. So we just kind of keep that number stable right there. And so, do you have any questions there, or? I think we asked a lot of those at the May 7th Committee of the Whole. Now, this is a very exciting report. There's a lot to it. As again, I somehow now find myself on the report committee with Frontline because they would like my input. I have a lot of strong ideas, but the light blue is the revenue portion, and then the darker blue is expenses. And so these are some nice, interesting graphs. I won't go through each one, but this is our general fund. Excuse me, this is our entire budget. And what we don't have good numbers in Frontline is our 23 actuals, because that's when I implemented the program. So going forward with 24, we're going to have some good actuals that will be loaded into this software. And also as a reminder, our friends down in Minneapolis and St. Paul many of them are using this program as well. They have implemented a transparency commitment to the public. And I don't know if it'll happen this summer, but hopefully by the fall, I will be having a budget link on our website. We do this monthly, but I don't know that everyone goes in and listens to our board book or reads board book. So if they go to our website, they'll be able to click on a link, and we'll be providing monthly revenue and expenditure reports. And I think it's a great idea. One of the districts down there has a link that says, ask a budget question. So we can talk about that if you want that on there, but I'm going to look at creating transparency, especially going forward for the next 2 years with our budget reallocations. I think it will be very important to keep everyone informed.
Member Sadowski?
I think that'll be great for just transparency. I mean, we are transparent, like Chair Lofeld said, and I really appreciate that we have our, here's when we met, here's what we talked about. These are the changes that have happened along the way. But I think that'll just be helpful because it'll just be easier for maybe more people to access that data. And then just another thought I had, I like the idea of the button, like ask a finance question, but maybe having also a like commonly asked budget questions might be helpful for.
That's a great
for
idea,
you.
too. Thank you. Okay, we can keep going forward then. This page, if you could go back up a little bit, this one is community service and community ed. Yes, community ed. And then if you keep going, I have, so here we have a little bit easier on the eye is our general fund revenue. We have our charts on here. It does bold it at the top what our local, state, and federal revenue is. And then we do have some comparison charts below. And you can keep going, Shannon. Thank you. Right here is where we have, so here's some good detail for our public as well. It shows what our property tax levy was for '24 going forward to '25, the percent increase or percent decrease. If you see, pardon me, total revenue to the right has dropped 5.5 million. Well, ESSER went away. So we have line by line, a lot of good detail for everybody. And if you want to keep going, Shannon? Thank you. Here's the general fund expenses. So our salaries and benefits combined, 117,000. We are coming in at roughly 85% of our budget is staffing, which is common and acceptable. And our purchase services is 10,500,000. Well, as the Voyager team was here, and I walked out with them into the lobby, Mr. Croyce Senior said, "We've never done that before. It was great." They all loved it. As to what you said, that meant a lot to them too. And I think it's nice for everyone to see a face and personalize. But they work so hard at trying to be fair with us on our budget. They actually revised it twice. It took a year to get to this, on the work they did before they presented it to us. That's what they told me. So we are going to be very careful with purchase services. There are some things we simply cannot change. We have a lot of outside contracts for our special education department, transportation, our substitute calling system. So supplies and equipment, I really dropped that. It says minus 46.48%, but 50% of it was supplied by ESSER. So that's why that dropped. So we're going back to several years ago where our supply budget was very tight. I'm getting emails every day, can I order, custodial equipment for next year or supplies? And no, you're gonna have to wait till July 1, please, because right now our budget is overspent and we need to stop.
Member Sadowski, and then before Member Sadowski speak, I also, Simone, maybe you want to speak to this. Even CFO, your predecessor also indicated and had it that we were operating in a budget deficit even prior to ESSER. So even before ESSER, we were at around $5 million that I recall of a deficit. ESSER came. ESSER has just been filling in the holes for us, filling in the gap, and I want the community to know that and just remind the board, that especially new board members, ESSER just filled in a lot of gaps for us and gave us more. And I'm bringing this up now because we are getting ready to head into, as Simone is about to share, a space where we're going to be $6-7 million needing to make the budget balance, in the next coming year. And some tough decisions are going to have to take place and happen. And I just want to remind everyone that we were running in a deficit prior to ESSER. ESSER filled in the gaps. As a district, we made a commitment to hold on to as many staff as we could to help support our students during those difficult times. But now the cliff is here. You know, we are, as the superintendent likes to say, we are stair-stepping or scaffolding down the need for reductions, and it's going to be really challenging next year. But we're trying to be as transparent as possible with all the finances to let the community know, so there are no surprises. Member Sadowski, and then Simone.
I was just going to add, and you can clarify if I have this wrong, but for some of our new board members, under the purchase services for our teachers on call, I remember having a conversation about that, though there is a cost, but there was also a significant savings that happened with teachers on call, in addition to just our efficiencies, which is one of our strategic plan markers.
I can speak to that. Teachers on call, we pay a flat fee for each substitute that we use. And prior to using teachers on call, our long-term, or our substitutes were in the teacher's contract, so we paid salaries, benefits, and the pension. Okay, by going to teachers on call, we pay a flat fee. And it still costs us money, but with every contract increase, we're not paying the increase on the benefits and the TRA. Teachers on Call offers their own version of a pension and has a lot of incentives. But people sometimes forget that we were paying for these substitutes out of our own general fund budget. So we're still paying out of the general fund, but it is a savings to us. And we were having clerical staff calling for hours every day, calling for substitutes. So now it's more efficient for the staff at the sites. We hope that, I know sometimes it happens where some sites still struggle finding a substitute, but for the most part, we don't have staff doing that.
Member Lawford Camp.
I appreciated when you had the Teachers on Call representative, or we brought her here and that she's housed here. So that was a really good information. So thank you for doing that.
And she's employed by Teachers on Call. She is not our employee. Okay, so are you going to be pushing the button, or does Shannon? Yeah. So you can just here's our expenses. Oh, let's go back right up here. So I won't do each fund this way because the general fund is the most critical to us. Our salaries and wages, so you see in FY '23, our actuals here were 73,000,008. Our '24 budget was 80, and you'd think with ESSER falling off, all that would fall off, but it did not. We had some contract settlements, and we had some commitments through the referendum to keep staff. So that number mostly stayed the same, but our revenue decreased. So that's really the heart of where our Gen Ed fund, the difference is. Purchase services, as we discussed, is flat. Supplies and materials, we reduced by almost 50%. And our capital expenditures, I'll talk about this one. That's Fund 5. So we were paying for that debt fund, that question 1 that passed. We were paying for that debt in Fund 5 out of the general fund. By passing that question, we were able to move that to Fund 7. So that's why we were able to reduce the expenditures on our capital expenditures. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, and so here, our total expenses to the far right is minus $6,085,000. And then attached to all of these, if you'll keep going, we have fund. Do you see in the upper right-hand corner, we have food service 02, that's the fund number. We had to manually enter those. That's one of the things I called Frontline and said, you gotta fix that. So here is the revenue breakdown, and if you page down a little bit further, Shannon, below we have our revenue a little bit further if you don't mind. Right below, there you go, into this piece right here. This is where we get our funding for our revenue for food service. And each fund has a revenue and expenditure page that outlines it for us. Unless you want me to go through each page, I think they're relatively self-explanatory. So Shannon, we can keep going quite a bit down. I did supply each fund to you, so you can look at this. Community ed, debt service. It's going to make us all sick to our stomach, trust. And keep going. And insurance. Okay, so here, I included this, John, with John's permission, this is the omnibus education policy bill that passed. So here are all the details on the READ Act. If you keep going, Shannon, it's a 3-page document. So if anyone has any questions, it's good information, I thought. I like to provide that. Okay? And then at the last page is the READ Act money that was given to us, allocations, and this is a 35-page document, so we just did our page that had Duluth. It's based on the fall 2023 enrollment of 8,007. This year, we are going to receive, we have not received it yet, 349,000, and then next year is the 315,777.
Is that primarily for professional development?
Yes. Yes. Probably not. Probably not even by half, but it's just a little bit more money for us.
But we are, we're ahead of the game on that one too.
We are, yeah.
I appreciate you providing all the districts, by the way, sorry.
Yes, and that's just our local, so you can see up here, but there, like I said, it's a 35-page document of all the districts in the entire state. I didn't know if you'd want to see that, but if you would like it, let me know, I'll email it to you.
And I'm sorry if I missed it, but did you mention the teacher compensation portion, that there's so basically MSBA is working with Education Minnesota on a template memorandum of understanding so that we can have common ways that we disperse that money, because so many districts have already paid their teachers, and so we don't want to like double pay teachers now for doing the letters training and then not have additional money later. So that's being worked out at a state level, at least as a guide. And I would say we are investing in letters, and letters is more time consuming. It's more expensive. And you might be saying, why would you be doing that now at a time when our budgets are tight? But really, I believe, and the research bears out that strong intervention in early literacy is one of the best investments that a district can make. And so there are many districts that are taking an easier model than letters. But when you go upstairs and you hear the teachers going through training on throughout the evenings, it's a buzz with energy, and they're finding it very, very transformative in the way that they teach. So I feel like we're replacing our literacy engine with a sports car engine, and it's going to be really, really incredible for the district. It's going to pay off not just in the reading rates for our kids, but it's going to be a long-term change that will impact many of the measures that we use for our kids.
And I would say kudos to the state. I mean, there are other states who have implemented the science of reading years ago, and Minnesota is now doing it in a meaningful way. And so kudos to the state, because literacy across the country is not where it should be, at least proficiency levels is not where it should be. And so this is going to, I believe, also a game changer for the state, but especially in Duluth. So I'm excited about the resources that are being provided and the focus that the district and the state has provided. Member Loeffler-Kemp?
Yes, there's a buzz. I mean, I'm hearing it from staff too. I'm just hoping that maybe sometime this fall at a COW meeting, we could do kind of an update on kind of where the training is at, how many's been trained. Again, I know we were ahead of the game, but I think that would be helpful, kind of a follow-up to what maybe Laura did a few months ago. Yeah.
Actually,
Quick question on the letters training. So we saw what Duluth was awarded for this year, and then next is, will that take care, so by the end of next year, will all of our staff be trained? And are we thinking then that, every year, the legislators will come back to this training necessity and know that, yep, Duluth got this amount this year, we get this amount next year, but as they come back to the table next year, should they still be hearing from us that, this has to go years 3 and years 4, so that all districts get, the bigger districts should get, training money? That would be my first question. And then second question is, where are colleges at with training our educators coming into the field in this reading curriculum? And where do those conversations go? John, you meet with our local university leaders, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. You're working right there in the heart of our college campus, so it'd be interesting to just get some updates on what our colleges are doing across Minnesota and across the country for training and reading.
yes. So I think it's really important for us to continue to work with our universities and put friendly pressure on them to make sure that they are making those changes. And I believe that the state is doing that, and I think that the higher ed institutions are seeing that as well. So I think from that angle, that will happen. As far as the funding piece goes, I'm hopeful. For some reason, like the Polar Express and the Bell, whether you believe or not, popped into my head. It's like, I hope it happens, and I believe that the state will try, but I hope that it comes to fruition as well. But we need to prioritize literacy. I think most districts that are raising their scores and raising their outcomes for kids, they really double down on the investments in early literacy. And to be frank, and I know it's late, but that article I sent, we're going to have people that are pushing for all kinds of demands and all kinds of things that they'd like to see and want to see and need to see. And one of the things that the article said is people don't really care what the research says when we're making these decisions, but we need to care what the research says is best practice. And it's going to be hard for us to lean in and make some of those tough choices and maybe say, we're going to not do X because we want to focus on literacy. But I think that that's going to be something that's going to be essential for us to continue our mission.
Member Laflacamp?
Are you wrapped up? Okay, I didn't want to lose this thought, but I just really, next week, we're going to be doing a vote on our budget, and it's one of the key roles of us as school board members, and I just really have appreciated all the different ways you've worked to help us understand the budget, and in particular, having 3 new school board members, and, I feel very prepared to vote next week, and so just really thank you for all the different ways you've provided information and met with us and answered our questions. And you've done a great job. And I feel, as a board member, very prepared to vote on our budget next week.
Thank you very much.
Member Derek Eater?
I just want to 100% acknowledge that we are pulling $5 million from our fund this year. We're going to be pulling $5 million next year in order to cover, let's call them budget inconsistencies right now. But what I do want to remember and what I'm ready to lean into is that collectively, the work that we have done, I'm going to come back to it again and again, in addition to the literacy, is revamping a schedule of an entire school district, K through 12, adding minutes, making investments, working with our teachers, settling 2 two-year contracts. We have 4 years of our contracts settled with our teachers. We can project that out. We have done a lot of good work to prepare us to make these difficult decisions. but we made these difficult decisions, and we are here because collectively, this is the road that we wanted to go down. So again, it's going to be painful, and we have a lot of big decisions to make, but we have made smart, strategic decisions that have put our kids at the front. Like, think about what we have done. Those teachers' contracts, revamping those schedules, making those investments, and passing that question has been huge for us. So I want us to lean into the difficulty we're going to have to do, but remember all the hard work and lean into the positivity of what we have done so far.
Thank you, and I was going to actually say some similar things, because I think it's important for us to kind of have that elevator speech of what are some of the basic key points that we want to make. And as you said, we have invested in our district. We have put things in place that are really important for that transformation. As you've mentioned, the other thing that I would add is that the board and the administration have worked pretty hard for quite a few years to have some of that cushion, so that we could, rather than go off the Esser cliff, we could at least step down off the Esser cliff. And I think that is going to be important. I think it's also going to be important that many of the districts are making the cuts this year, the reductions this year, and it'll be important next year when we're the ones making the reductions and others have already gone through it, to remember that other districts around us have cut 75 positions or 50 positions, and when we have to make some of those reductions ourselves, that we tried to hang on to things as long as possible to make sure that we could continue to close those gaps and focus on the unfinished learning that our students had. But I think that the budget we have is prudent, and the leadership that Simone and her team, Sheila and others have shown. Since you're the only audience member now. Our entire audience is focused on assisting us with their budget. But I think it's important to recognize that and keep those key points in mind. And if you want us to distill them down into a former district I worked in, they talked about keywords at key times. And I think just having some bulleted statements as far as these are some of the basics as far as where we are with our budget, that could be helpful for folks. So thank you, and thank you, Simone. Executive Director Zunich.
Thank you. And we do have one last topic for this evening, and I guess, and this was something that we decided that we wanted to have the opportunity to do before we go into the next school year, is to just have an opportunity for a review. Similar to today, all of our call meetings have been really packed with a lot of information. As you are aware, we made a decision that our strategic goals and efforts will be tied to some of the presentations that will be delivered at the CAL meeting. We call that the progress monitoring topics or areas that focused on the priority areas, which is supporting every student, advancing equity, and improving systems. So at every board meeting, we strive to have at least one topic from each of those areas, which we were able to do. And we had other topics that also came to the board, similar to what you just heard, or a couple of other presentations tonight. So we want to have an opportunity, Chair Lofo, to just review the progress monitoring topics as well as all of the other items, and just have some dialogue on what is it the board would like to see moving forward for next year so that we can start planning. Do we want to have a very similar kind of setup in terms of the topics that come forward, or do we want to do something different? And we just want to just have that discussion as a board, or with the board.
Just to provide some historical context too to the meeting we're sitting at right now, Member Loeffler Kemp and myself and former Member Oswald took on kind of a project my first year on the board about looking at our committee structure. At the time, we had an HR committee, just HR. Then we had a business committee, just business. and then we had an educational committee. And that was our committee structure. And through discussion for probably close to a year, we then decided to combine the HR business into one committee and then bring forward this committee of the whole idea, which has taken on the flavor of a lot of education presentations, but also had room for other presentations and information that really predominantly bubbled up through the school board. And then when Superintendent Magus and Assistant Superintendent Magus started to come on board, it really did then. Did I say Assistant Superintendent Magus? At least I got yours right, yeah. When they came aboard, and as this committee of the whole, this meeting has really, it's only 4 years old now, 5 years old, through COVID as well was, a different kind of scenario. And so they brought forward a lot of this structure with the advancing equity, improving systems, and academic something or other. I had it right in front of me, yeah. So, and I've really appreciated that. But in that, too, I think when I've had conversation with our team leadership, I've just wondered if are there things that school board members would like, and it's always been open for that. Like tonight, I think we just kind of came forward and said we'd like a presentation on comp ed allocations. And so usually Executive Secretary Brown makes that note, and it goes into her projected kind of file. And we take a look at when we can work that into our system. So I don't know if that helps you in understanding why tonight we're here just reviewing what we've seen over this year. Do you see any gaps in where we're not bringing forward a department? And I'm sure we're not, because there's no way in a 12-month cycle we're going to get something presented to us from every programs and every curriculum that we are doing. And a lot of our committee of the whole agenda items also come from state guidelines as to when we have to approve concurrence and non-concurrence, or when we have to make sure that we vote on the handbook or whatever we have. Many of the things we see tonight, or we've seen all year, are things we've done every year almost in the same month, because it's what has to be done and voted on before. But
And
does
also,
that summarize what we
It
were
does,
trying
and
to get on bringing this to a cow tonight?
yes, and also to add what you were just sharing, we also bring some topics because we want to make sure the board is well informed on other items that may not be connected to here.
these three.
But we want to make sure that, that the board is well informed, to have opportunities for input and dialogue around those things. So as you see up on the screen, I'm just going to restate real quickly that the ones that are connected to the progress monitoring topics, those are items that are connected to our strategic plan, right? So the items that are identified in our strategic plan as priority areas, we made sure that as a team, we have action plans, and there's a lot of big plans that departments are supporting, but we select only one item out of each area to come to the board and present. And then there's all these other topics. So the ones that you see on the screen, the first 2 pages in blue, these are all from the strategic plan. But if you go to the ones that are in yellow, so you'll see the ones that are connected to the strategic plan, but then look at all of the others. For example, September 7th of 2023. So you see the 3 areas, but then there was also lots of other presentations, which make for a long day. But also, but
we don't see them, right? Like if you look at September 7th of 2023, we had the kindergarten, the tribal, the recruiting and retaining, but we had other things as well?
Yes, so go to the next page, page 173. If you go to page 173,
yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
So
Oh,
you
okay.
see not only the 3,
Oh,
but then you
okay.
see all the other
Okay,
topics.
okay.
That's what we actually.
That's what we actually did that day. So we had those 3 topics plus additional presentations, which again makes for, again, our job is trying to make sure the board is well informed, make sure have opportunities to hear from our leaders. And I want to thank them again. I know they're not here, and we don't give, I try my best to make sure I give them thanks and praise. There's a lot of leaders who are overseeing a lot of programming that folks may not even be aware of. Angie Frank, for example, was just here providing information related to adult basic ed or adult ed. And that's probably something that probably doesn't come to the board that often. But she's doing a lot of work, in our district. And so having her come and provide some of the programming that she does is not only important to her, but her staff and her students that she supports. So we do provide a lot of information, again, about the programming that we offer. And so that's why most of our meetings are really robust and long, and we want to have more dialogue about what is our path forward, though.
I just want to add two things, and then others have lots of more. Couple of things is, one, as we did our research a few years back on committee structure and what other school boards are doing with committees, there are lots of school boards that have a variety of different committees. It's like amazing, and not all board members sit on it, and just kind of like ours. But the other thing that I noticed when it was more during ESSER or COVID than now, but I still like to tap into what school board meetings I can watch on YouTube from other districts. Their school board meetings look a lot different than ours because they don't have a committee like this. So for instance, many of the presentations we had today were just 5-minute or 6-minute presentations at school board meetings. And so, and I don't think, even before we had the COW meeting, our committee structure was different than other boards, where the committee structure, whether it was education, HR, or business, and we didn't have policy at the time, which I think that's really added so much, good stuff to our district. But those committees, listened as well. But a lot of times, if you listen to other school boards' actual voting meeting, they have a lot of these presentations there, and I think that this is a much more honest and thoughtful process to get conversation and discussion and questions and presentations.
I'm going to call in no particular order, so I apologize if your light was on first. I'll start with Member Banks, and I'll just go around. Member Banks?
Thank you. I'm looking for, especially in the area of equity within the school district, and how the equity folks who are in that work, I'd like to see more of them at our school board meetings, to not only just come and share with us, that they took a trip south and it was successful, which is a great thing, but I want to know more about their impacts that they're having on our students, and what our ISPECs are doing to enhance the education of our kids. I'm not hearing any of that. Yes, these are great people, but I want to hear from them. I want to see them at a board meeting more than just one time, because it's very important work, just like the other work that's going on. But if equity is a part of our strategic plan, I want to hear more from them, if that makes any sense.
Member LaFleur-Kemp?
Yeah, I've really appreciated the committee of the whole meetings where there's been a lot of staff, but also community partnerships and community members. And I guess, I like the structure. I like the 3 focuses. I think that kept us focused. It was a great way to educate the community on our long-range goals, as well as I think it just provided a lot of education in a lot of different ways. I would like to see, frankly, more of our staff represented at these meetings, from Lakewood to Stowe and everything in between, because it does give us this opportunity for them to get to know us, for us to get to know them, to thank them when we can, and just really show the breadth of diversity, and I use that word a little loosely, that we have across the district and what's happening across the district. So I hope we continue with this structure in terms of topics. Certainly, as Cheryl Lofold said, there are things that we have to do at certain times. We're going to need to continue with that. And some topics, it will be good to have an update on, maybe in October or something. But continuing to think of other topics that haven't been brought forward, this year particular, because we have 3 new board members too. And so I like the format we're using. I commend you, because I know getting all these speakers and telling them they only got 10 minutes is really hard, and then controlling all of our questions, not controlling, but that we facilitating, yeah, you don't control us. But anyways, it's really great. And so I hope we kind of continue as we have moving forward. And I guess the last thing in terms of topics, topics sometimes filter out of these meetings or other discussions that are happening. But we also want topics that we all kind of, like tonight, we talked about comp ed and there was a lot of nodding. Yeah, this is something, if it's kind of a one topic thing, we might not be able to cover it, right? In this format, there might be other ways to cover it. So I think we have to be conscious of that as well. So those are just some of my ramblings.
Member Sadowski, and then Superintendent Magus.
I'll be pretty succinct because I think I appreciate what you had to say, Member Laffer-Kemp, and what you had to say, Member Banks. Good thoughts, suggestions. Just wanted to emphasize that I have really appreciated the progress monitoring kind of updates and how they align with our strategic plan. So I would encourage that to keep going forward. And I've also just really like all the topics.
So I would suggest that maybe we also give you some time to look at this, and maybe we send out, because it's late, send out a Google survey or something like that that could kind of have people reflect. Next week, I'll be sharing what some of the directions will be for next year. We'll still have the same main strategic foci of supporting every student, advancing equity, and improving systems, but they've shifted a little bit just as far as what we're focusing on. You'll find a lot of similarity, though, because it's not like you suddenly fix literacy or fix social emotional learning for all of our kids. If we do, that'll be a great celebration. But I think being able to reflect on that will be helpful. And then also, just thinking about that, we're trying to tighten the through line connection between what is our strategic plan as a district and what is the work of our departments and what is the work of our schools, and being able to report up, and also make sure that we're, when we do things like approve a budget, that's allocating the resources that are needed at the site. So we want to just continue to tighten that through line. That values tree over there, I'll show you a little bit more next week, but we have the values of the district, and then what is the core vision or the core mission of the district, and then what are those three focus areas that we have, and what is the work that's being accomplished. I think it's important for us to keep tightening that. And then just as a advertisement for our closed session in July for my evaluation, one of my goal areas is on school improvement, and basically how are we tightening the way that we have a district strategic plan that filters through the whole district and is implemented in the schools. So I think this is kind of in many ways, this is one of the main artifacts that we use as we work to try and show how are we making sure that the work we do is aligned with what you've set forth for us as a strategic roadmap. So I'm really grateful to all the teams that have come forward, but especially grateful for Assistant Superintendent Bonds for leading the progress monitoring work of the Committee of the Whole, as well as the board we want you to hold us accountable, right? We're going to do great things for kids, and we're going to keep doing great things for kids. And thank you.
I'm going to just keep going back in the circle. Then I'll start with Member Mikesell and then Chair Lofel.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really appreciate the Committee of the Whole. I feel like I learned so much at everyone. And even though I'm now about going on hour 5 for those of us who are here for Policy Committee, I recognize that this is important information that we're receiving. I also just wanted to bring up the fact that this is on the agenda today. Almost makes me feel like there was some reason to have a further discussion of do we like this? Like, what are the bad things about this that we need to update and change? And I haven't heard any of those. And so maybe that's in the survey, like some of that will be fleshed out when it's not hour 5. A little bit more, or if this was only just to verify that, yes, and validate that we want to go forward with this current strategy. So I just wanted to say, like, if we're needing to have those hard conversations, maybe setting aside those time or having it.
I guess I'll start out. I think it was more of an opportunity to begin the discussion on a year review. I think that's how we titled it, as just a year review on, where we are, knowing that this was the last one for, knowing that there was not going to be a meeting in July, so that we could start preparing for August in terms of structure and process. So it was just to start the discussion.
And for me, it was about bringing the school board's voices in as we look to the next year of this structure and in the committee of the whole, that Member Zadowski as clerk and myself as board chair, so it's always well, I don't know if it's always, it's the way we have policy right now, that board chair and the clerk set the agenda for the committee of the whole and the school board. And so it's always been open for any school board member to contact Member Zadowski, myself, or Assistant Superintendent or Superintendent Magus to suggest some things. And like Member Loeffler-Kemp says, sometimes if a suggestion comes forward and there's enough time to prepare that presentation, or we see that in actuality that topic is going to be addressed in 2 months when it is kind of that time of year where you go and do that, then we would say, would you be willing to hear that in November? And again, I think it was just trying to also, share that ideas. If Member Banks thinks that a focus on equity, we have in our progress monitoring that guideline that says every month we're going to show or we're going to highlight some presentation that is connected to advancing equity. And maybe when that presentation comes forward, if there's some things we need to hear that is, sometimes maybe they come and their focus is that education part. They're telling us what their program is doing and where they're going and all the great things happening. And maybe, what we need to hear is the data that shows that there's some percentage of advancement in our students that are being served in that presentation we're hearing. I don't know, but I do know that it is important, and we have this guideline of advancing equity, so we'll continue to put that in there. But again, I think it was just an open invitation to remind board members that topics that you feel, and you now have this, I'd hang on to this little document, because now you see the year in review, and you might say, oh, we got this in November, and I would really like to see it, and so you could view it on our YouTube channel. Or if you see some opportunity like, oh, we haven't heard from this program that I know is in my son's school, and there's some really great things going on there, maybe that would fit into your, one of the presentations as well. But thank you.
And I'll jump in and before I come to Superintendent Magus, because everything you shared, and I'll be honest, it's also gives me, and obviously other directors as well, an opportunity to just really share, there's some really good work happening. Because you all hear information about, what are those folks doing? What are folks, how are we moving the system? What are we really doing to improve outcomes for our kids? We have a lot of good work that's being, in my mind, we're trying to strategically align those efforts and resources and to make sure that the board is fully aware of all the good things and the community is aware of all the good things that are happening in this district. Because there are many, many wonderful people and people who are working really hard to improve systems and to improve outcomes. And we still have a lot of, room for improvement, and we really want to see the success. So I just want to share that. And Member Banks is spot on, and Chair Loeffler as well. We'll give you those presentations, but if you're saying let's hone in on those presentations, but get a little bit more specific instead of hearing a just big overview from a program leader, and you say, okay, you want to hear something more specific about adult ed and just focusing just on the data or an aspect, or instead of Nate, Coordinator Smith, bringing information related to just overall programming, and you want to know specifically about impact of integration specialists and just have that as a topic, we could do that. So, if, that's another thing for you to consider as you give us some feedback. Do we just, narrow down the topic that is being brought so that you can get the information that you want instead of having it just be a big overall program overview? So we're open for suggestions. Superintendent Magus, I'll turn it over to you.
I would suggest maybe we find, thinking about the fact that we're on hour number 5, thinking about how, like, we're all troopers and we're all working hard, but is there a way that we can pare things down a little bit, or maybe shift policy meetings so it's not on the same night, or have a time guide. I'm so tired, I'm not saying it. I can't get my words out. But, having guidelines for what the length of time for a presentation is and kind of aim for it, but if it goes long, we let it go a little long, but at least have a target, because when things are completely open-ended, it does make for a long evening, and sometimes at the end, it's hard for us to really, I feel like I'm not mentally processing as fully as I want to be at this point. So please feel free to be open and honest about the areas for improvement, not just the celebrations.
Some survey of some sort to get some feedback. Let's work on that, Chair Lofel. All right, thank you, everyone.
We're adjourned.